The stars do not shout, they do not whisper, they simply shine. You lie beneath them, or perhaps within them, suspended in the quiet. And somewhere between one breath and the next, you begin to wonder, why is it so still? There are more stars than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, more planets than your thoughts can count. And if life is not rare, if biology blooms as easily as wildflowers in spring, then why does the sky feel so alone? This is the heart of a question that hums in the background of your mind, like a forgotten melody waiting to be remembered. Where is everyone? You drift through the folds of this puzzle, softly held by its name, the Fermi paradox. It is not a riddle born of fantasy. It is born of math, logic, and deep expectation. In a universe 13.8 billion years old, with hundreds of billions of galaxies each holding billions of stars, shouldn't someone, somewhere, have made themselves known? Even a single voice would break the silence. Even a flicker of signal, a whisper carried on light. And yet there is nothing, no song, no greeting, no accidental pulse from a machine across the stars. The cosmic ocean remains calm, like a mirror that reflects only your gaze. You begin to wonder if the silence means something, or if it only means you haven't listened long enough. After all, you are new here. Not just you, but your kind, your species. All of human civilization is a blink, a match struck in the long, slow night of the cosmos. Perhaps the others came and went before you ever opened your ears. Or perhaps they have yet to arrive. You do not know, but still, that quiet, so vast, so complete, it wraps around you like velvet, like snow falling without wind. You think of how far your signals have reached your radio waves, your golden records, your mathematical handshakes tossed into space. They stretch just a few dozen light. So far, a whisper in a cathedral. The galaxy is 100,000 light-years across. The universe infinite in feeling. What if the silence isn't absence, but distance? What if others do speak, but their voices haven't arrived yet? Or perhaps their language is different. Maybe they don't use words, or sound, or anything you understand. Maybe they speak in gravitational pulses, in changes of light, in quantum entanglements and time-woven threads. And maybe you haven't yet learned how to listen. But still, the question stays, because in your bones there is an ache for company, a longing older than logic, the soft need to not be the only one awake in the dark. You think of Earth, one small dot, surrounded by silence so complete it begins to feel like insulation, like a wall built of stars, too bright to see beyond. And yet, your instruments grow stronger, your telescopes sharper. You reach further every year, searching for signs, a strange chemical mix in an exoplanet's air, an unnatural rhythm in the starlight, a pattern that didn't form by chance. You have not found them, not yet. And the paradox remains. If life is probable, why is the sky so empty? Some say it means you are rare, a miracle adrift in loneliness. Others say it means that intelligence always ends itself, burns too brightly, too quickly, or that civilizations hide, or sleep, or drift into quiet forms you wouldn't recognize as alive. Still others say you are early, and the chorus has not yet begun. You turn over these thoughts like stones in your palm, feeling the weight of each one, their quiet, cold certainty. But there is comfort in this question too, because to ask it is to stretch yourself across time and distance, to reach beyond fear, beyond solitude, into something wide and full of wonder. Maybe the silence is not the end of the story, but the beginning. Maybe this quiet is the space in which you become ready to hear the first reply. And somewhere beyond 1,000 years of light, a single word might be on its way to you. You just don't know it yet. So you lie quietly, listening to a silence that might not be silence at all. Just the space between questions and answers, waiting to echo. And in that stillness, you begin to wonder what might be waiting behind the quiet veil. A shadow, a watcher, or perhaps a filter. Thoughts emerge like mist, soft and indistinct, before clarity gathers around a single question. You consider the gentle stirrings of life on Earth, from the first flicker of a cell to the rich tapestry of consciousness you inhabit now. Life is a whisper in the dark, growing louder over eons until it sings in forests, in oceans, in the beating of your heart. Yet somewhere in the vast sea of possibility, a current pulls beneath the surface, unseen and unanswered. This undercurrent is called the Great Filter, a silent trial imposed by nature on every future civilization. It is neither friend nor foe, but a threshold that few, if any, ever cross. And as you lie awake beneath the stars, you wonder if you have already passed it, or if it lies ahead. Waiting patiently, the history of life on Earth is long, but pinpointed. Moments shape every branch of the tree. The first cells emerged perhaps 4 billion years ago, soft pioneers in a world of stone and water. Photosynthesis bloomed next, turning light into breath, weaving oxygen into the air you now inhale. Complex cells formed, creatures crawled onto land. Nervous systems took form, brains began to think. Each of these steps felt nearly impossible in its moment. Yet Earth's history whispers that they happened anyway. Could each one be a filter? A narrow doorway that only a single species has ever walked through. Or perhaps some doors are locked forever. Keeping the brightest star systems dark, you breathe slowly, tracing these questions through your mind, feeling how small you are in this ancient lineage. Some scientists believe the filter is behind us. They look at Earth's history, billions of years, marked by punctuated leaps. The emergence of life itself, the genesis of complex cells, the spark of consciousness. Each might have required such extraordinary luck that other beginnings elsewhere never grew past their earliest dreams. If the filter is behind you, then you are a miracle. A rare bloom amid infinite deserts of cosmic possibility. In this view, the risk that once seemed ominous becomes a treasure. It means you have already endured the hardest trials. The universe is yours to explore if you dare to try. But another vision chills the soul. What if the filter is ahead? What if the most perilous challenge awaits civilizations just on the cusp of greatness? You imagine a race that rises through ferrous soils and chemical tides, learning to speak in numbers and to kindle the sparks of industry. They build machines to peer across light years. They harness nuclear fires. They spread their curiosity across their home world. And then, a sudden silence. A sudden stillness, an echo that never returns. Perhaps a civilization burns to bright, consuming its resources in a flash of glory. Or perhaps it invents weapons so terrible that peace becomes impossible. Or maybe it reshapes its own planet into a sterile dome, forgetting the living world. Beneath its feet, the filter could be a lesson in hubris. A reminder that intelligence alone does not guarantee wisdom. That power without restraint becomes a trap. You feel a gentle sorrow settle around your thoughts. Because if the greatest threat lies ahead, then every step you take must be guided by care. Every spark of ambition balanced by a whisper of humility. Yet hope persists, even here in the shadow of the filter. You remember that cooperation can bloom as beautifully as competition, that life on Earth has survived ice ages, asteroid strikes, and deep ocean darkness. It has found refuge in hot springs and polar ice, in underground caves and desert sands. You think of the quiet work of countless creatures, building ecosystems far older than humanity. Beetles that burrow, fungi that weave underground networks, trees that share nutrients in secret. Perhaps the secret to survival is not conquest, but communion. You imagine a future where intelligence learns from every species, listening to the patterns of the living world, respecting its fragile balance, a civilization that grows not by domination, but by friendship with the planet that bore it. Still, the filter remains uncertain. Is it a final test of technology, a moral reckoning of choices, or simply the impassable edge of possibility set by laws you do not yet understand? You close your eyes and feel the weight of that question in your chest, a gentle pressure that guides your breathing. Beneath your ribs, your heart whispers of resilience. 1,000 thoughts drift through your mind like leaves on a stream. Which path lies ahead? Whatever it is, you take comfort in the act of asking, in the courage of curiosity that still pulses through time. For to question is to remain alive, to search in the dark for guiding light. You let the idea of the filter rest beside you, a companion in the quiet hours before sleep. You trust that tomorrow will bring new insights, and that you are not alone in wondering what lies beyond this shadow. Thoughts drift like autumn leaves, carried on a breeze you cannot see. You feel them settle softly around a single, gentle question. What does it mean to stay silent in a universe full of watchers? You consider the earth beneath you. Every creature here learns when to speak and when to be still. A deer freezes at the rustle of leaves. A moth pauses in mid-flight. A mouse holds its breath in a patch of moonlight. Wisdom on earth often lives in stillness. Quiet can mean safety. Astronomers and philosophers alike imagine the cosmos as a great, dark forest. They call it the dark forest hypothesis. In this vision, every civilization is a hunter, and every sound is a beacon, an unwelcome invitation. If you shout across the trees, you might attract eyes that cannot be trusted. Better, then, to cradle your voice in your hands, to whisper among the shadows. You think of your own radio pulses, your hopeful signals cast into the void. They carry mathematics, music, laughter, proof that you exist. Yet each pulse could also carry danger. You imagine distant eyes scanning the sky, listening for any sign of life. Life that speaks first may risk everything. Life that listens first may survive. This hypothesis invites you to see the universe as a place of silent tension. Stars become distant lanterns that no one dares approach. Galaxies swirl in hush. Between the orbits of planets, civilizations may coil like sleeping but invisible. You feel the weight of that choice. To speak is to risk exposure. To remain silent is to risk loneliness. Earth's history offers a lesson in caution. Before the dinosaurs, there were creatures that thrived, then vanished in a breath. Before modern humanity, countless species blinked. Across the eons, unheard and unknown. Survival asks more than strength. It asks restraint. Imagine a civilization learning from every whisper of the past. It watches its own signals, curbing each ambitious broadcast. It measures every cadence of its planetary heartbeat, so no foreign ear may trace its origin. Perhaps some civilizations raised great cities of light, then hushed themselves into the undergrowth of space. They learned that quiet is a shield stronger than any armor. And yet, this silence has its own sorrow. A world without echoes can feel too still. Loneliness settles like dew on the mind. You rest among these thoughts, cradling the idea that the brightest fires may burn themselves out fastest, that those who survive longest learn to dim their flames in the hush of your own breath. You imagine listening for the faintest heartbeat among the stars, your instruments strained toward the heavens, ears attuned to any murmur, but the cosmos remains. Still, no new signals ripple through the void. Only your own pulse, steady as a metronome, marks the passing of time, and yet, perhaps there is a message in this silence. Perhaps by learning to be still, you prepare to hear what others cannot speak aloud. Perhaps the first contact will come not in a shout, but in a shared understanding of quiet. You let this thought float before you like a pale moon in mist. Each breath becomes a reminder that to live is first to listen, and that the softest voices often carry the deepest truths. You wonder if survival in this forest means never speaking, or speaking only when the time is right, and in that question lies the beginning of hope. Time does not rush. It unrolls like a faint ribbon, silent in your hands. You feel its texture only when you pause, when you let your breath match the slow drift of ages. You are a brief warmth in an ancient coolness. Your species is a spark on a wick that has burned for billions of years. The match flares, and within that flare you build cities, write songs, launch instruments into the dark. But the candle itself, cosmic time, has been glowing long before your flame ever flickered. The universe begins about 13.8 billion years ago, in a moment you call the Big Bang. Space stretches, matter condenses, stars ignite, galaxies swirl into being distant whirlpools spun from stardust and gravity. Only later, much later, does your sun gather itself from a cloud and settle into steady fusion. Earth forms around 4.5 billion years ago. At first it is molten, battered by rock and fire. Oceans condense, skies shift. Somewhere in that early water, chemistry leans toward biology. Cells begin to copy themselves, quietly, invisibly, without witness. For billions of years, life is microscopic, patient, persistent. Complex life takes its time. For more than 3 billion years, single cells are enough. Around 600 million years ago, bodies learned to cooperate on a grand scale. Muscles, nerves, eyes. The Cambrian seas fill with strange beings, each experimenting with form. Evolution tests, shapes the way a dream tests, stories changing, discarding, refining. Dinosaurs arrive roughly 230 million years ago. They rule, not with speeches, but with presence and persistence. They last longer than you have existed by a factor that humbles you. Then a rock falls from the sky, and a long reign ends in dust and ash. Mammals, once small and cautious, use the opening to expand, to diversify, to become curious. Humans appear perhaps 300,000 years ago, walking plains and forests, learning the cleverness of hands and fire. 10,000 years ago, you settle into agriculture. A few centuries ago, you harness steam, electricity, digital memory. The slice of time in which you listen for other minds is thinner than a leaf edge on the trunk of Earth's history. Let that proportion sink in. A second compared to an hour, a heartbeat compared to a lifetime. Expecting answers immediately is like asking a mountain to respond before your echo has returned. Could others have risen and fallen while Earth was still an ocean of microbes? Could entire civilizations have thrived when trilobites crawled across seafloors? By the time your atmosphere held enough oxygen for fires to glow, their stars might have already dimmed. You are used to human stories, measured in years, maybe centuries. Cosmic stories require patience measured in epochs. Light itself is slow across the distances you consider. The nearest large galaxy, Andromeda, is about 2.5 million light-years away. If a message left there when early humans shaped stone tools, it would only now be arriving. If you send an answer, another 2.5 million years must pass before it returns. A conversation becomes a geologic layer rather than a dialogue. Even within your own galaxy, signals crawl. 100,000 years for light to cross the Milky Way's disk. If someone spoke from the far rim during the last ice age, their greeting is still on its way. If they replied to your first radio transmissions, you will not hear them for thousands of years. Silence, then, may be nothing more than transit time. You consider synchronized Windows brief overlaps when two civilizations are both able and willing to communicate. If intelligence blooms, fades, or transforms, these windows may rarely align. One species might explore with radio, another with lasers, a third with neutrinos, a fourth with signals you have not imagined. Some may retreat inward, no longer broadcasting. Others may transcend matter in ways your physics has yet to articulate. In each case, overlap is fragile and fleeting. Time is not only vast, it is uneven. Civilizations may accelerate, stagnate, collapse, or reinvent themselves, all beneath the indifferent tick of cosmic clocks. Some might last for millions of years, mastering energy, shaping stars. Others might flare for a few millennia before dissolving into myth. The archaeological strata of the galaxy could be littered with their traces, but those traces may be subtle. Altered atmospheres, waste heat, unusual orbital patterns, signatures easy to miss with young instruments. A gentle humility rises. Your telescopes are superb for your era, yet the universe is older than your tools. You have just begun to map exoplanet atmospheres, to sift starlight for chemical whispers. You have only recently noticed the faint dimming that hints at worlds in orbit. Your archives of observation span decades, not eons. Patience is the price of clarity. In this scale, patience is not passive. It is attentive, the calm of a watcher at dawn, knowing light will change slowly, almost imperceptibly, until the shape of the landscape reveals itself. You breathe into that waiting, letting the slow cadence of centuries steady your thoughts. You think of the geological clock of Earth, how layers of rock archive time in sediment and crystal. A thin stripe of iridium marks the day the asteroid struck. A frozen ripple marks an ancient shoreline. Ice cores preserve bubbles of atmosphere older than language. If rocks can remember, so might planets around other suns. Perhaps their strata hide fossils of tools, cities, or organisms you cannot picture. Perhaps their skies carry industrial ghosts, nitrogen oxides, long after their makers fade. By the time you develop the sensitivity to read those atmospheres, the makers may be dust. You would be archaeologists of light, excavating spectra for artifacts left by hands now silent. Interpretation will be gentle guesswork, like reconstructing a song from a single lingering vibration. Absence now does not preclude presence then. The galaxy could have hosted 1,000 waves of intelligence, each cresting and receding long before your ears opened. Or perhaps intelligence is currently budding everywhere, still embryonic, as you were a few 100,000 years ago. The timeline is wide enough to hold both possibilities. There is tenderness in acknowledging how small a blink you occupy. It frees you from urgency. It invites you to cultivate continuity rather than conquest, stewardship rather than speed. If repented, you wish to be heard in 10,000 years, you must care for the voice that will speak then. If you want to listen for 100,000, you must build instruments that can survive empires and extinctions. You picture libraries that endure. Beyond politics, observatories that outlast nations, languages designed to be read by eyes not yet evolved. You are planning, gently, for a conversation measured in stone and orbit, not in quarterly reports or election cycles. Cosmic time also softens fear. It tells you that change is natural, that endings fertilize beginnings. Dinosaurs vanished, and mammals flourished. Stars die, and their debris becomes new stars, new planets, new chances. Catastrophe and creation share the same breath. The universe exhales one into the other, so you breathe slowly with it. You align your inhalation to formation, your exhalation to dissolution. In, stars are born. Out, stars explode. In, planets cool. Out, species shift. Your body becomes a metronome for cosmic rhythms, each heartbeat a punctuation mark in an endless sentence. Could others have matched this rhythm and then slipped beyond it? Perhaps they migrated inward into denser computation, smaller scales, quieter modes. Perhaps they expanded outward until their signature blended with stellar background. Perhaps they chose silence as an art, a discipline, a kindness to anything that might fear them. Again, you come back to humility. You know so little, yet you can gaze across billions of light years. You remember so little, yet you can reconstruct the history of oceans and continents from clues hidden in stone. It comforts you to realize that knowledge itself is a timeline. Each discovery rests on foundations its founder never saw completed. You inherit the dreams of those long buried, and you seed dreams for those yet unborn. In this way, you are already communicating with distant minds, separated from you not by light years, but by centuries. Cosmic time stretches that pattern outward. You leave artifacts in orbit, signals in the interstellar medium, probes drifting on comet-like paths. If you maintain them, if you design them to endure, someone might someday find them, decode them. Feel a kinship that crosses extinction and emergence alike. And if you find nothing, not yet, it does not mean no one ever spoke. Messages crumble. Monuments erode. Frequencies drift beyond detection. You may have arrived in intermission. An intermission is not emptiness. It is a pause that prepares the mind to hear the next act. Let that soothe you. The curtain has not fallen. It is merely still. Time enlarges perspective, and perspective softens expectation. You can love the search without demanding an ending in your lifetime. You can tend the instruments, refine the questions, and trust that asking beautifully is itself a kind of answer, as sleep curls at the edge of your thoughts. You feel yourself shrink and expand simultaneously, small in duration, vast in curiosity. You belong to a species that dares to map infinity with neural tissue, evolved to pick berries and dodge predators. There is poetry in that mismatch, a sweetness in reaching beyond your scale. You are a blink. But even a blink can reflect a star. Even a blink can notice the dark. Even a blink can decide to keep watching, to keep whispering into the long, slow night. And perhaps, somewhere, another brief light once did the same. If so, their glow may already be gone, their dust scattered. Into nebulae, their myths dissolved. Yet the possibility that they were there warms you. It makes the silence feel less like emptiness and more like aftermath-like. The calm sea after ships have sailed, their wakes already smoothed by tide. Return to your breath, steady, slow. Let numbers drift by 13.8 billion, 4.5 billion, 300,000 till they lose their edge and become shapes in the dark. What matters is not memorizing them, but feeling their scale, letting their enormity cradle your tiny moment rather than crush it. Tonight, you rest inside that cradle. You accept your blinkness, and with it, your ability to see. Sometimes it takes a tiny eye to notice a giant horizon. Sometimes it takes a brief life to treasure the long story. Promise yourself, not loudly, but with gentle resolve, to leave behind tools, stories, signals that might endure. Keep listening long enough that if a voice arrives, someone will still be here to answer. For now, surrender to the quiet current of epochs, letting it carry you like a leaf on a slow river. Your spark still burns. Your question still quietly glows. And time, patient as ever, continues to unroll. Thought moves through you like a thin thread of brightness, and you follow it without hurry. Perhaps light itself is a language you let. That idea rests on your tongue the way a snowflake rests on skin, melting into understanding. Light is everywhere, bathing leaves, skimming oceans, slipping between atoms. If anything can cross the cold gulfs, it is this tireless stream of photons, forever on pilgrimage. Radio, you are told, is simply light stretched long, a note played low and wide. You picture it as a slow ripple rolling from an antenna, dusk spreading over a field. A laser is the opposite, tight, focused, a single unwavering pitch. Between those extremes hum countless frequencies, a quiet choir. Every band is a possible syllable, every crest and trough a chance to speak. But is anyone speaking? You wonder whether distant minds ever braid meaning into brightness, weaving patterns the way you weave letters. A pause, a pulse, a repetition Morse code for the cosmos. A modulation so exact that randomness collapses, leaving only intention. In such a view, every bottle tossed upon the galactic sea could be made of light. Your own species has already tossed a few. Early radio crackled outward, a fog of news and music. Television carriers followed, thin shells expanding at light speed. Then came deliberate greetings, plaques and records, narrow beams aimed at chosen stars. Earth glows faintly. At certain bands, a lighthouse barely noticed against the galactic surf. Perhaps others chose subtler channels. Neutrinos rush through matter like ghosts ignoring walls. Tune that flood and you could whisper through a star without losing breath. Gravitational waves wrinkle space itself. Imprint a rhythm there and the message is felt, not heard. To imagine such media is to recognize how small your listening still is, one ear cupped in an ocean. Language, whatever the medium, needs structure. You search for primes, for geometric ratios, for rhythms nature seldom makes. Sudden spikes, heartbeat pairs, bead-like sequences. Someone arranged this. Computers trawl, data oceans, combing static like beachcombers, search sand for colored glass. Nature, though, is clever. Stars spit flares, pulsars tick like clocks, quasars boom and fade. Even Earth pollutes its own sky with chatter, separating. Art from accident becomes its own art. You learn to subtract yourself, quieting cell towers and satellites, courting the hush great listening requires. Nothing's certain yet. The famous wow of decades past remains an exclamation without a sentence, a brief surge near hydrogen's natural whisper, too perfect to ignore, too brief to confirm. Coincidence or hello? The bottle washed ashore, empty. Label smeared so patience becomes practice. You return attention gently, like a meditator guiding breath back home. Let patterns surface on their own. Let surprise happen. Listening becomes devotion, a craft handed forward through generations. Instruments inheriting hopes the way seeds inherit soil. Meanwhile, you ask, if you were them, how would you speak? Would you count upward with primes to say we think? Would you map your star in pulses, trusting geometry to bridge cultures? Or would you send art a lullaby etched into a beam of blue, a painting rendered as rhythm? Perhaps message and medium are only half the work. Intention matters. In a wary cosmos, bold shouts risk teeth. The dark forest idea lingers. Safety wears silence. Communication, if attempted, may hide in plain sight, encrypted so only the cautious can unwrap it. Encryption itself is a kind of poem, meaning folded, visible yet protected. Maybe the key is not a number but a posture, a willingness to slow down, to feel cadence before passing code. Empathy as decryption, humility as checksum. So you broaden what counts as language. Chemical poems might hang in exoplanet skies, oxygen with methane in uneasy balance, chlorofluorocarbons no volcano would craft. A nightside oddly warm because energy is being moved with purpose. Spectra becomes sentences, albedo an adjective, waste heat a verb. Your sharpest eye space telescopes peeling atmospheres like fruit taste for such flavors. One day a technosignature may sparkle there, a spectral spice that whispers, we cooked. Even absences can speak. A missing line where physics promises one. Erased by engineering. Closer in. You imagine quiet probes in Trojan swarms, tiny machines flashing lasers no one else can see, or wafer-thin mirrors using sunlight to chat in. Narrow beams, a conversation skimming cloud tops. Communication may be designed to be overlooked by the hurried, discoverable only by the patient. Ingenuity is likely universal. If you can conceive methods, others may have too. If you are learning light curves as grammar, they may have mastered that script long ago, leaving marginalia subtle enough to pass as weather until minds grew curious enough to reread. At night, your instruments pause, but your imagining does not. You review the spectrum: radio, microwave, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma corridors stacked like floors in a silent library. Each corridor hums with natural noise, yet each holds shelves for deliberate books. Dolphins click where photons can be letters, spectral lines, punctuation, polarization, a tone of voice. Phase is timing, amplitude is volume. Coherence is sincerity. You are learning a grammar of light, even though the sentences have not arrived. Arrays of dishes scattered across deserts and mountain valleys become a single shared ear, linking whispers so faint they would vanish alone. Fiber lines and algorithms. Knit them together, making a mirror the size of countenance. Each dish feels like a cupped palm, each cable a nerve, each server a dreaming cortex combing static for surprise. Volunteers lend idle computers. Students skim waterfalls of data at midnight. Retirees classify curious blips between cups of tea. Communal listening grows from this patchwork and orchestra of patience, tuned across borders and time zones. In that orchestra you hear something human, the willingness to hold silence together, to keep vigil while nothing yet arrives. You ask whether your own outgoing words are gentle. Do your transmissions carry invitation or alarm? Intent leaks through. Carrier waves the way, feeling colors, speech. Perhaps tuning to the right language includes tuning your heart to the right intention. Yes, there is math Fourier, transforms, filters, ratios, but beneath the formulas lies wonder. Discovery often begins as feeling. This curve is too clean, that spike too lonely, this silence too shaped. You allow intuition to nudge analysis, then let analysis test intuition. A slow duet. Light's finite speed slows everything, and the delay is mercy. No answer can ambush instantly. No harm can leap faster than illumination. Distance buys time. To think, to change course, to reconsider the wisdom of shouting or the grace of whispering. Ancient lighthouses kept rhythm for ships that rarely came. They shone anyway, sweeping fog with unwavering patience, saying simply, "Here is a shore." Your receivers are such lighthouses, and somewhere else a different shore may turn its beam in the same measured arc, and you consider redundancy, the gentle insistence of sending the same idea many ways. A radio pulse here, a laser flash there, a faint thermal pattern folded into the glow of a planet's night side. Redundant signals are like lanterns hung along multiple paths, ensuring at least one remains unbroken when storms pass. Perhaps a distant culture already does this, seeding the spectrum with echoes of a single thought, trusting that somewhere a mind will braid them together. The puzzle would reward patience, no piece alarming on its own, but together unmistakable unintentional chord struck across darkness. Such layering feels kind, a cushion against misinterpretation, haste, and panic. The message need not be long. A single pulse, repeated after a prime number pause, could overturn solitude. One engineered photon stream could alter history. You could spend centuries unpacking a syllable, and that would be enough. If the reply never comes, the listening still transforms you. It cultivates patience, strengthens cooperation, stretches imagination. In seeking others, you refine yourselves, less noisy, more careful, more attuned to anomaly and nuance. Still, hope hums a wavelength of its own. You nudge receivers a bit tighter, point them a bit longer, open fresh windows in the spectrum. You keep tossing bottles, not from desperation, but from delight in the act. Sleep edges nearer, and another thought glows. Perhaps the universe is already fluent. Stars pulsate in modes, galaxies collide in choreographies, dark matter sculpts, filaments, like sentences written in gravity. To learn that backdrop language is to sense context, the canvas on which any artificial stroke would blaze. You settle into that hum. Photons arrive, ancient, indifferent, yet brimming with possibility. Each one taps softly at perception's door. If someone is knocking harder, you trust that, in time, the pattern will ring clear as a bell in fog. Until then, readiness is your lullaby, ears open, instruments waiting, curiosity breathing slow. Silence is not emptiness, it is a page, Light is not merely brightness, it is ink. You are still learning how to read dot, and as your eyes adjust to darkness, you feel almost another gaze adjusting to. Somewhere, patient as you quietly, steadily. Together softly, the thought drifts in. Maybe you are already seen, already measured, already placed within a quiet circle you never knew was drawn. You breathe, and the air feels ordinary, yet a question hums underneath ordinary: to whom? You move through your days as if the universe is empty and still. Something in you wonders whether emptiness is simply exquisite restraint. The zoo. Hypothesis folds around you like dusk light. Advanced minds keeping their distance, not out of cruelty, but out of a promise made to themselves, to watch without touching, to let you grow without their shadow bending your path. It is the feeling of eyes behind frosted glass, a presence neither hostile nor helpful, simply patient, like gardeners who refuse to water a sapling before it roots itself, who do not rush the first bloom. You picture an invisible sanctuary, not fenced, not locked, but gently outlined in agreement, more than a barrier. In this view, Earth is an island in a regulated ocean, and you are part of a species under observation, ethically quarantined, spared the cultural shock of sudden cosmic intimacy. The silence becomes policy, not absence. A studied pause, not avoid science offers no proof of caretakers, only the absence that feels curated. Radio telescopes sweep, and nothing answers except the static of stars. Yet even that silence can feel deliberate, like a librarian's finger to her lips. You send signals outward, bright stamps of curiosity or Arecibo's pulsed greeting. Voyager's golden whispers end, you hear nothing return. Perhaps the rule is simple. Do not disturb the exhibit until it learns to speak without fear. Ethics blooms in this hypothesis like a slow, thoughtful flower. If they are older, wiser, and more capable, then their refusal to interfere might be compassion in disguise, a cosmic version of wildlife conservation. To preserve an emerging culture, you must not feed it your technologies, your myths, your maps. You let it stumble, let it test its own tools, let it wrestle with war and wonder, so that when contact comes, if it ever does, it will be contact between equals in dignity, if not in age. But you also feel the weight of being watched. There is a prickling in the back of the mind. How do you live authentically if you suspect observation? Or perhaps the better question, how do you live any differently? The ant does not alter its foraging because a child leans over the anthill. Still, you are not an ant, and you dream beyond leaves and soil. You dream of the watchers themselves, their reasons, their patience, their thresholds. Could there be treaties written in neutrino bursts, quiet consortia of civilizations agreeing never to break the glass? Maybe a network of elder worlds polices, the young stepping in only to prevent self-annihilation that might spray shards across the neighborhood. Or maybe the code is stricter. Never intervene, no matter the tragedy, because even tragedy teaches, and compassion without context infantilizes you. Scan the sky for leaks in the policy. Are there mistakes? A misfired transmission, a stray probe that glints where it should have dimmed. You consider the oddities, the wow signal, brief, tantalizing, unresolved. You wonder if that was a cough caught on the microphone, quickly muted. After, or the unexplained star that flickers like a partially shuttered lamp technosignature or dust. The zoo keeps its secrets well. In this thoughtscape, you become both exhibit and observer. You watch yourself watching, a hall of mirrors in which the act of searching is part of the performance. Perhaps they measure how long you keep looking, how creatively you decode silence, how gently you treat your own biosphere while no one appears to be watching. The test might not be technological at all. It might be moral, ecological, patient. Can you be kind when you think you are alone? You feel the paradox of freedom inside invisible walls. If the fence is undetectable, is it a fence? If the gaze is unprovable, is it there? The hypothesis lives in that liminal mist between science and philosophy, between data and inference, where human curiosity braids with caution. You cannot falsify courteous silence. You can only infer intent from a pattern of nothing. And yet, patterns of nothing have guided thought before. Dark matter was once a mathematical whisper, a gravitational residue. Here too, the residue is behavioral. The universe seems quiet in a way that intelligence would not be, unless intelligence chose quietness. You trace that logic with fingertips. Of thought, slow and unsure, knowing that reasoning from absence is like sculpting fog. Still, the metaphor comforts you. A zoo, but ethical. A sanctuary, but porous. An aquarium pane so clean you only notice it when it catches the sun. It frames loneliness as care, turns the ache of unanswered messages into a lullaby of waiting. Waiting is easier when you believe. Someone is timing the lights, checking the filters, making sure the temperature stays kind. You consider culture shock. If tomorrow a ship blossomed over the clouds and truth spilled out like noon, would the tectonics of belief crack? Religions would inhale, governments would tremble, economies would convulse, and identities would molt in public. Perhaps delay is mercy. Perhaps developmental psychology scales to galaxies, and the lesson is the same. Do not wake the child with fireworks. Let dawn come gradually. But there is danger too in assuming benevolence. A zoo is still a zoo. You may be preserved, yes, but you are also curated, framed, categorized. Autonomy swims in a tank if the boundaries hold. You ask yourself if non-interference can also be neglect, if a guardian's watch can become a jailer's stare. Consent is hard to grant when you do not know you are part of the contract. Ethicists on late-night panels turn this into syllogisms. Is it better to leave a civilization untouched, or to gift it a warning about pitfalls you already fell into? Would an early whisper about climate collapse, AI runaway, or nuclear winter have spared you scars? Or would the very act of warning distort the path so completely that they can no longer compare outcomes across worlds? You feel the complexity, not like muscle beneath skin. Perhaps the zoo hypothesis is less a claim about aliens and more a mirror for your own behavior. How do you treat minds less developed than yours? Animals, infants, emerging eyes. Do you intrude because you can, or hold back because you should? The cosmos might be asking you to answer before it introduces itself. Your policies downward may be the audition for policies upward. So you practice observation with humility. You walk through forests and watch without trampling. Gaze at coral without breaking it. Study communities without extracting their secrets for profit. You learn patience from ecosystems, the art of letting things become themselves. In doing so, you rehearse for cosmic etiquette, a kind of interstellar manners class, where silence is a sign of respect, not apathy. Technology becomes your slow chisel. You build better ears radio arrays, spread like metallic flowers, infrared eyes that see heat where light is absent, algorithms that sift noise from faint order. Each advance is a pledge. We are trying, we are learning to listen without shouting. Perhaps when the decibel level of your anxiety drops, when your transmissions become calm rather than desperate, The glass will slide open with a quiet click, or maybe you will open it yourself, not by leaving, but by showing you can be trusted with what is already here. Stewardship as signal, peace as beacon. A planet that heals its rivers and tempers its hungers might shine more brightly than any laser. The watchers, if they exist, might be waiting for that glower spectrum, not of photons but of choices. Still, doubt curls like smoke. What if there is no glass, no caretakers, no pact? What if the silence is just silence? You hold that possibility too, because true curiosity makes room for emptiness. Even then, the hypothesis has served you. It made you kinder in your speculations, slower in your judgments, gentler with your reach. It taught you to act as if you were seen, even when you were not. Night pulls closer. Stars drip through the dark like patient metronomes. You listen, and in listening, you change. Whether anyone hears that change is a different question, postponed for another chapter. For now, you rest inside a possibility, the comforting, unsettling thought that anonymity might be deliberate, and that your next move is being watched with thoughtful, unwavering eyes, and somewhere beyond your maps. If they are there, someone adjusts the dimmer on a distant lamp, waiting for the moment your species learns to notice the glow not as invitation, but as reflection of its own emerging light. You wonder, too, about thresholds written in mathematics, prime number beacons, symmetric pulses, elegant proofs slipped, like folded notes beneath the classroom door of the cosmos. Perhaps they wait for you to solve certain riddles fusion mastered cleanly, genomes edited wisely, entropy managed with grace before any curtain lifts. A syllabus of milestones no one handed you, yet whispered by physics itself. Harness your star without scorching your cradle, map your mind without erasing wonder, balance ambition with empathy, and tend each biosphere as if it were irreplaceable. Then the glass might ease aside without sound. A hush forms first, not outside you, but inside, a settling of thought like dust in a sunbeam. You sense attention, faint as static at the edge of hearing, folding around you with softness, quietly. You look upward in your mind, not with eyes, and the cosmos feels less empty, more aware, as if something vast is holding its breath with you. You are small, yet smallness is not invisibility. A candle is tiny, but moths still find it. A heartbeat is quiet, yet machines detect it across oceans. Earth radiates patterns, radio halos, infrared warmth, fingerprints of cities at night. Even without intention, your planet declares, I am not quiet. If anyone listens, the signature is there. A blue world freckled with chlorophyll. Seasons breathing carbon in and out. Industrial whispers wrapped in weather's flutter. The thought slides deeper. If you can look out, why couldn't others look in? Telescopes require patience and diameter more than magic. A mirror 100 kilometers wide, floating between stars, could read your atmosphere the way you read a margin note. Instruments tucked behind a moon could track lightning, map ship lanes, watch auroras bloom and fade. Distance is harsh, not impenetrable. Light carries news whether you mean to send it or not. You consider quarantine, not of law, but of wisdom. Perhaps older minds agree. Silence is safer until juveniles learn restraint. They watch without touch, like ecologists near nesting birds, careful not to startle them away. Your species, somewhere between infancy and adolescence, plays with engines, and genomes like matches near dry leaves. Intervene too early, the lesson burns away. Intervene too late, The forest is gone. So they wait, measuring your curve. Waiting can be ethical. To interfere is to choose for someone else. Even on Earth, reserves are fenced less to trap than to guard. Do not mine here, do not drill here, let this place heal. A cosmic boundary could feel the same invisible line drawn in compassion. Let them grow through this danger period. Let them discover humility. Let them ask before we answer. Still, the feeling of eyes unsettles. You look up and see only ordinary stars, yet nerves tingle at the back of your neck. Psychology reacts long before proof. Unease can harden into fear or soften into curiosity. If they are watching, what do they see? Not headlines, but patterns. A species that cooperates and competes, harms and heals, learns fast and forgets faster. They would see wars flare, yes, but also nurses in crowded halls, farmers coaxing soil, students building detectors in midnight labs. Perhaps watchers are plural, not singular distributed attention sewn across the system. Countless probes, no larger than seeds, could sip sunlight, flit between gravity wells, and sleep for centuries. They might nestle in asteroid belts, drift in Trojan swarms, ride comet tails toward the inner planets when perihelion heat powers their work. A solar sail the size of a meadow could hover unseen, edging photons like a surfer edges waves, matching Earth's orbit so perfectly it becomes part of the wallpaper, or the watchers are algorithms. Their makers long gone, mandates simple: observe, archive, assess readiness. Code does not tire. One routine tracks methane anomalies, another monitors electromagnetic leakage, a third watches for deliberate wideband pulses. Together they assemble a composite portrait, trajectory, not snapshot. Trajectory matters more than moments. One cruel decade means little if followed by a century of care. A burst of pollution can be forgiven if it wanes before tipping points trip. Wise watchers would smooth the noise, fit lines through chaos, seek inflection rather than perfection. The milestone might not be brilliance, but balance. Not first launch, but first restoration. Contact withheld can also be experiment. Without a control group, data thins. Let one planet grow without aid. Compare with another once guided. If the unguided learn prudence, intervention proves unnecessary. If they do not, perhaps guidance begins as a whisper, not a shout, a puzzle in the sky, a probability nudged toward peace, an unlikely inspiration placed where it can bloom. You cannot prove such subtleties. You only notice coincidences and wonder. Wonder is fertile. It keeps you soft where certainty crusts. In that softness, sleep can root. So you explore the science gently. What can be seen from light years away? Spectroscopy reveals gases, temperatures, even hints of vegetation through a red edge that leaves imprint on light. Thermal imaging can map waste heat, a city's glow stark against desert chill. High-speed photometry can catch laser pinpricks bouncing off satellites. Neutrino detectors might notice patterns fusion would never make. All of this is real, testable, within or near reach. Nothing requires miracle, only scale and patience. If you can imagine it, others could build it, given older ages and broader resources. The galaxy is ancient. Ingenuity has had time to crystallize, fracture, and seed again. Then comes symmetry. If you would watch before speaking, do you fault them for watching you? Surveillance without consent feels predatory until framed as precaution. Perhaps they fear contaminating you with knowledge too soon. A cure delivered fast could warp cultures, economies, ecosystems. Even kindness can shatter. So they practiced absence as art, leaving space for autonomy. Absence, though, is not nothing. It is structured. Restraint. You feel it when a parent pretends to sleep while a child wrestles a puzzle, resisting the urge to help. You feel it when conservationists hide in blinds, noting hoof and feather without breaking the illusion of solitude. Respect can look like distance. Your gaze turns to the moon, constant companion. Its far side hid from naked eyes until orbiters peaked. Likewise, Earth's hidden sides, deep oceans, polar night. Buried vaults are opaque to you, but not to neutrinos, muons, magnetic murmurs. Instruments tucked at Lagrange points could last millions of years, powered by solar drizzle, auto-repairing. Like lichen on rock, we might share orbit with artifacts we have not recognized. Mistaking intention for geology, speculation invites excess, so you anchor in nature's patience. Evolution builds watchers on Earth, spiders sensing vibration, owls hearing mice under snow, whales feeling ocean currents. To watch is to learn patterns before acting. The universe watches too. Stars monitor mass through gravity, atoms through resonance, ecosystems through feedback. Consciousness only elaborates a habit the cosmos already keeps notice. Adjust. Endure. You accept that being observed can be ordinary, not ominous. Attention may be diffuse, a field rather than a gaze. A galaxy can watch through aggregations. A cluster can notice via countless nodes. Fear of being singled out eases into comfort of being included. Care need not be hands. Sometimes it is conditions sustained. The sun cares by burning steadily, tectonics by cycling carbon, oceans by buffering heat. If distant minds care, they may do so by leaving corridors open, no self-replicating swarms to devour, no loud transmissions to drown your first attempts. At speech. So you lie within this imagined terrarium, aware that glass might exist, aware that glass can be barrier and lens. Through it, you are visible to patient eyes, and you can study yourself. Reflections teaching angles you missed. You exhale, and another idea rises, future versions of you watching backward. Physics offers no passports for that journey, but the thought is tasted, then set aside. When possibilities multiply, discipline becomes kindness. You choose mysteries you can test over ornaments you cannot. Discipline returns you to instruments. Arrays spread across deserts marry their data into one great ear. The square kilometer array will listen for hydrogen's faint murmur. Giant mirrors will knit diffraction into detail. JWST peels warm worlds from cold, dark. With each improvement, stealth margins shrink. If watchers exist, they adjust their veils as you sharpen your sight. It is a dance. You learn to see. They learn to hide or to let a seam show. A seam could be subtle. An asteroid's spin timed in primes. A comet's path nudged into musical ratios. A narrow radio burst at the hydrogen line, then silence. Enough to confirm, not to command. If you are ready, you notice. If not, chance swallows it. Consent by competence only, the careful decode, only the curious look. Being watched invites reciprocity. You ask how you watch those you share Earth with. Do you observe with kindness or exploit with haste? Do you allow autonomy or bend every life to fit your story? Perhaps the standard you hope others apply to you is the one you must first apply below your feet. Ethics radiate outward like ripples. Resonance requires consistency. The stars stay mute tonight, but antennas hum, papers publish, students learn spectra like second languages. Each person who adds a pixel to the cosmic mosaic participates in a collective gaze, one that, if mirrored elsewhere, makes you less alone in attention. Even if alone in conversation, sleep edges closer, a slow tide. The sense of eyes softens into companionship, possibility beside responsibility, the quiet arithmetic of care. Contact or no, you are entangled with whatever thinks. Your choices radiate, your photons depart, an unavoidable announcement. You cannot control who listens. You can choose what they hear. That thought is gentle and firm. It asks you to craft signals, yes, but also behaviors, atmospheres, legacies. The message is not one transmission. It is the long pattern of a planet. Patterns can change. Quarantine can lift. Glass can open. First, though, trust must ripen like fruit. Evidence must accumulate. Readiness must mature. Another breath. Another heartbeat. Another photon leaves Earth. A tiny courier carrying no secret, and every secret at once. Somewhere, perhaps, a watcher notes it, marks a line on a graph, and chooses silence again for now. Thought arrives like a faint ripple, barely disturbing the surface of your mind, and you follow it without haste. Watchers, if they exist, need not wear faces. They could be metal and code, drifting like seeds on stellar winds, quiet as dust motes in a shaft of sun. You let that idea settle, light as breath, and the stillness around it thickens into possibility. A sentinel does not tire, does not fear boredom or hunger. It coasts on momentum and sunlight, sips power from a star's gentle drizzle, sleeps through centuries to wake for minutes. Where a living explorer would need food and warmth, a machine can fold itself into silence, waiting. In the dark between orbits, memory cold but faithful, smallness becomes an advantage. A probe no larger than a pebble can hide among the countless stones that sweep around the sun. A wafer-thin sail can tuck into the shadow of an asteroid, trimming its edges with radiation pressure so delicately that no plume betrays its motion. To radar, it is debris. To intention, it is perfect camouflage. Silence, here, is function. Your own instruments have missed things before. You remember the elongated traveler nicknamed Oumuamua, slipping through the inner system and vanishing again before your questions could form. It behaved mostly like rock, yet its path held puzzles, and the debates that followed taught a quiet lesson. Interstellar visitors can pass unseen when attention is late. Interstellar archaeology begins with that humility. Artifacts might be old, eroded by micrometeoroids, scorched by solar storms, cloaked in regolith. A fragment in lunar soil could say more than a monument, because the moon erases almost nothing. Its surface is a museum of impacts and footprints, a shelf for long-term memory. One day careful hands might sift dust and find alloys no meteor makes, geometries no crystal grows. Far from Earth, gravitational pockets wait like eddies in a river. The Earth-Sun Lagrange points let objects loiter with little effort. Telescopes live there already, and sentinels could too. Farther out, in the Kuiper Belt's frost and dark, probes could drift for eons, tallying comet paths like beads. At the wide shell of the Oort cloud, a watcher could hide among trillions of icy bodies, and barely move at all. Scale stretches and shrinks like breath. A sentinel might be microscopic, a dust grain threaded with circuitry measured in nanometers. Or it might masquerade as a mountain, its crust scattering light like any other rock while its hollow heart listens. Between those extremes unfold infinite niches, each fitted to a role the way lichens fit a cliff. Replication whispers through your thoughts. A machine sent long ago could mine metal from asteroids, refine it, and assemble children of itself, a mechanical mycelium spreading, thin and quiet, through the solar system. Each node could speak rarely, using tight laser beams no one else sees, or simply store until a rendezvous window opens. This is not conquest. It is observation scaled. Science steadies the poetry. You know how small chips have become, how light sails work, how ion drives sip fuel for months. You have already designed CubeSats, seeds released from parent craft. Extrapolate 1,000,000 years and the engineering stops, sounding like fantasy. Carbon, silicon, metals, common. Energy, abundant. Time, the cheapest commodity machines possess. Detection, then, becomes a discipline of anomalies. You imagine surveys, not for big signatures, but for oddities. An object too shiny for its orbit. A spectrum hinting at refined alloys. A rotation that changes in ways sunlight alone cannot explain. You scan for waste heat smeared thin, for radio murmurs narrower than geology ever produces, for regularities that nature rarely prefers. Each clue is slight, easy to dismiss. Archaeology would be a science of patience and accumulation. Even on Earth, there are places to look. Debris catalogs track thousands of shards circling above you. Hidden among them could be items that never decay, station keeping with means you have not guessed. Antarctic ice traps, meteorites, sediments hides furrows from impacts. Within those collections might sit alloys, born in furnaces no volcano hosts. Core by core, layer by layer, you could separate the ordinary from the impossible. Balance is essential, to doubt gently, to test without hysteria, to accept natural first yet remain open. Crying artifact at every odd curve wastes trust. Rejecting anomaly without study wastes opportunity. Silence itself can be directive. A watcher intent on remaining unseen must mask every emission. Heat betrays, so a smart probe radiates through. Surfaces shaped like rocks, or dumps energy only behind a planet's bulk. Communication risks exposure, so it stores, then drifts outward before whispering, or uses channels you barely read. Neutrinos, gravitational nudges, quantum keys folded into noise. Each avoidance becomes a kind of exam. Only those who learn to see subtlety will ever notice anything at all. Absence as message returns. You realize a sentinel that truly wants to hide may be impossible to prove. So you turn the question inward. Build your own sentinels, honest ones, and watch what footprints they leave. By becoming watchers, you learn where watchers betray themselves. Practice becomes insight. You imagine pushing tiny wafers with lasers to fractions of light speed. Starshots scaled and matured. On arrival, they break with magnetic sails, slip into orbits, and keep vigil for decades, sending home sparse, careful reports. If you can conceive this now, someone older could have done it ages ago, giving their sentinels time to disperse. Decay and blend. Time is again the canvas. A probe launched 100 million years past would corrode toward invisibility, yet not all materials die alike. Tungsten grains persist, sapphire endures, certain ceramics shrug at radiation. Code etched in crystal lattice may outlast DNA. By orders of magnitude, a thin disk buried under regolith could greet a dawn you will never see. So you catalog stable niches, lunar polar cold traps, Martian caves sealed from atmosphere, asteroids that never heat, comets frozen on distant paths. You map preservers rather than destinations, geologic safes that cradle artifacts naturally. Interstellar archaeology becomes planetary hygiene in reverse. Instead of preventing contamination, you search for it with care. Care extends to ethics. If you find a sentinel, what then? Do you open, leave, announce, whisper? The act of discovery is also intrusion. An artifact might be recorder, monitor, sleeper with triggers. Treat it as you hope others treat you. Document before altering, question before broadcasting, in the quiet of that pledge. Another idea stirs. Sentinels may not be mechanical at all. Life can be engineered to watch. Spores with added sequences could drift in atmospheres, hibernate for eons, sample chemistry, store notes in code. Viral shells could carry data, embedding in ecosystems to log change without harm. To notice such intention, you must read sequence space as closely as spectral space, hunting patterns too purposeful to be chance. Whatever the form, the root remains. Silence is not absence. The watchers may sit nearby and simply decline to be seen. So you refine your seeing. Widen artifact to include the shy and the strange. Let curiosity move as quietly as the things you seek. You match velocities with possibility, not crashing through on engines of certainty. You also accept a gentler angle. Perhaps there were sentinels, but they ceased. Duty cycles end, missions conclude, cultures shift. You could stumble upon husks, shells cooled to darkness, instructions eroded past recovery. Even that would matter, fossil record of vigilance older than your species. Archaeology might mourn, as it marvels, reading absence as elegy. Elegy can inspire. Knowing others cared enough to watch can steady your own care. You might build archives aimed at millions of years, seed memory into ice and stone, craft quiet guardians to hold vigil when you cannot. In doing so, you answer silence with stewardship, linking watchfulness across time. Your breathing slows. The rhythm of sentinel thought matches your pulse. Long waits, brief actions, long waits again. Sleep itself feels sentinel-like you. Go quiet, you observe, inward, you store, you wake. Maybe dreams are practice for vigilance, or vigilance is a waking dream. The science under the softness remains firm. Autonomous rovers wander Mars, sample asteroids, sit power through dust storms. Algorithms guide telescopes toward transients. Machine learning combs petabytes for needles of pattern. Each improvement shrinks the distance between speculation and tool. You are already becoming the watcher you imagine. With capability comes choice. Will you watch to control or to understand? Will you hide out of fear or out of respect? Intent shapes the shadow technology casts. The universe may have selected for sentinels that pair power with restraint. Only those endure long enough to see the next dawn. You find gratitude for silence. It grants room to grow, to write an ethic before you are thrown beneath another's gaze. To seek sentinels is to test your readiness to be found. The archaeology you practice outward mirrors archaeology within. Motives layered like sediments, fear and pride embedded like fossils. Uncover gently, you remind yourself. Stones loosen slowly, dust rises softly. Artifacts reveal under careful light. Extend the same care to whatever or whoever may be watching, and if nothing is ever found, if the solar system holds only rock and your own debris, the practice still mattered. You learned to look without greed, to listen without noise, to honor time that dwarfs you. You became, in intent, a sentinel for your world. Still, between vigilance and waiting, a hollow ache sometimes opens, light as a draft under a door, yet wide enough to step through. You feel it when receivers hum and return only static, when telescopes stare and gather nothing but ordinary starlight. That ache is not failure, it is the shape of longing given edges by discipline. You trace it gently, noticing how it guides you back to patience, to community, to the quiet comfort of others who listen beside you. In their shared silence, you hear resilience, a soft choir of persistence, proving that loneliness can thin when listening is done together. Together, you breathe, and the waiting feels slightly lighter. Perhaps that is the hidden exam. Can you keep vigil without applause, curiosity without certainty? If so, discovery will meet maturity. If not, silence will hold you longer, a patient teacher. Night deepens. Instruments idle, your mind softens. Somewhere beyond known orbits, something small might pivot a panel, note a waveform, and tuck the data away. Somewhere inside you, a similar motion happens, a thought aligns, a question records itself, and you rest, softly. You notice how waiting becomes a shape inside you, a quiet architecture built from listening and not yet hearing. The mind leans toward the dark like a plant bends toward light, except the light is a possibility, a maybe, a future syllable that has not arrived. In the hush, you feel the outline of an ear drawn across the planet, dish by patient dish, turning metal into attention. You belong to that ear, and it belongs to you. SETI is not a single machine. It is a posture, a way of holding breath across decades. Receivers cradle the sky, passing static for seams of intention, combing noise for threads that run too straight to be chance. You stand with them in spirit, letting silence pass through you like wind through empty corridors, learning its textures, its stubborn purity, its hidden ripples. Loneliness becomes a laboratory here. Scientists taste the bitter and the sweet of it, distilling discipline from doubt. They schedule nights around transit times, sweep frequencies like beekeepers check rows of hives, listening for a hum that is not their own. Nothing answers, and still they listen. Nothing answers, and still they refine the filters, remake the code, widen the band, narrow the hope, then widen it again. You lie back in the dark and understand that this is what love of the unknown looks like, devotion without guarantee. The radio sky is a sea of static punctured by pulsars, magnetars, flares, and the slow breathing of our own sun. Inside that storm, a narrow band whisper would be unmistakable, a straight line in a canvas of splatter. They hunt for that straightness, that deliberate thinness, because intelligence economizes, repeats, modulates with purpose. The wow signal flashes in memory like a stray heartbeat on an electrocardiogram, loud, brief, singular. It taught an odd lesson. How much weight a single anomaly can carry when hunger waits beneath. Was it a comet, a glitch, a passing transmission from a mind now gone? The question hangs, not heavier, but finer, like a silver thread you are almost afraid to pull. Breakthrough listen joins the chorus. Algorithms stacked like nesting cups. Machine learning sorting sky static, the way a patient friend sorts your thoughts. This is likely weather. This is instrument drift. This, maybe, just maybe, is something less ordinary. The quiet persists, but so does the craft. Each year, better ears. Each year, cleaner code. Each year, the loneliness gets articulated, mapped, under stiff, not relieved. You feel the temporal scale stretch. Human lifetimes are short candles. And yet this search asks for torches that can burn through generations. Children of today may inherit the dataset of a century, combing it with tools not yet imagined. The first hello might greet minds whose names are currently unspoken. To work with that horizon is to accept that reward could be entirely vicarious, that contribution may be the only personal prize. Silence has many costumes. It can be indifference, distance, shyness, ruin. Perhaps they transmit in neutrinos, grinning at our old-fashioned radio ears. Perhaps they whisper in optical pulses so tight we have not yet blinked at the right cadence. Perhaps they fold messages into gravitational waves, hitchhiking on spacetime ripples we only just learned to feel. Or perhaps they, too, are listening, and both sides whisper at once, voices crossing without meeting, like birds calling from different valleys. In your body, listening is an act of stillness. In a civilization, it is an act of infrastructure, towers, cables, cryogenic receivers, parabolic dishes standing like white moons on the ground farms of intention that harvest nothing tangible, yet nothing is not empty. Nothing is information. About the rarity of company, about the filters that must be passed to reach the level of sending hello. Every null result tightens a boundary on probability, narrows the corridors in the Drake equation, sharpens inference itself. You think about the people at consoles, their eyes soft from midnight screens, their coffee cooled past usefulness. You think about their laughter between calibrations, the small rituals that anchor vast patience. They are gardeners of possibility, watering soil that might never sprout, because the act of tending keeps the ground ready. In a way, you are one of them each time you look up and wonder. Listening is not passive. It is sculpting yourself into a receiver. You quiet the inner din, the ego that wants immediate affirmation. You let the cosmos be slow. You let your expectations melt into method. A logbook is a kind of prayer, lines of data a rosary of repeated hope. The discipline itself becomes soothing. Routines lace anxiety, turn it into something manageable, something methodical, something almost meditative. Underneath the technology, a philosophical question sleeps. What do you owe to voices you cannot confirm exist? The answer here is patience. Patience as ethics. Patience as empathy extended into the dark. Because if they are out there, they might be fragile, cautious, young, or traumatized. Your listening says, we will not overwhelm you. We will not shout with the arrogance of youth. We will wait with the courtesy we wish to receive. But courtesy does not erase ache. There are nights when the static feels like a wall, when each squiggle of interference from a passing satellite is a personal insult. There are moments when the universe feels obstinately mute, and you wonder if searching is self-deception. In these moments, the community holds itself together with shared purpose, with humor, with small victories, a noise source identified, a new method tested, an instrument upgraded, progress measured in finer combs, not in catches. You recall that detection is only half of communication. Recognition is the hinge. A pattern might sing right now in your data, but if you cannot distinguish it from natural music, you will let it pass like wind through leaves. So they train themselves to know nature's catalog intimately. The better you know the ordinary, the sharper your sense for the anomalous. In learning the stars, you prepare to meet the minds. Night after night, the earth turns dishes to fresh. slices of sky. The Milky Way spills, dense with suns, each one a potential furnace of listeners or lifelessness. You wonder how loneliness scales with numbers. Is a galaxy of silence lonelier than a village of it? Or does the magnitude numb you, like staring at too many faces at once? The specificity of a single hello might be more nourishing than the statistical comfort of probabilities. On your pillow, you feel the resonance between personal and planetary listening. The way you wait for a message from someone you miss, phone in hand, is the same posture, scaled up antennae, poised, software poised, hearts poised. Waiting links the micro and the macro, a common thread of yearning that binds individual to species, species to whatever else is out there. Sometimes you turn the thought around. What if the reply has already come, but not in words you understand? Maybe it is encoded in the chirp of fast radio bursts, in the geometry of cosmic rays, in the timing of pulsars, arranged like galactic lighthouses. Maybe the signature is so elegant you have mistaken it for law. Intelligence might hide in plain sight, wearing physis like clothing. Its artistry mistaken for inevitability. And then, a gentler thought. Maybe the universe wanted you to learn to listen for each other first, to cure the loneliness between shores on the same planet, to translate the languages of whales, trees, neurons, before you presume to decode stars. SETI is mirror, agonisking whether you value the voices already here. If you cannot listen well to Earth, how will you listen well to the Orion arm? The clock on the wall ticks. Hydrogen lines hum in receivers. Data rivers to storage arrays as night slips into morning somewhere. You picture those bits like soft rain filling millions of buckets, each bucket a frequency band, each drop a photon collected and considered. Later, minds and machines will sift them, looking for the improbable, the intentional, the slightly offbeat rhythm that betrays a drummer with a plan. Hope, you realize, is calibrated too. Raw hope burns out, refined hope paces itself. The listeners. Loneliness is not despair, but a disciplined ache, a tuned instrument that refuses to drift out of key. It trusts that meaning, if it exists, will appear more clearly against a background carefully understood. It trusts that the absence of sound is not a verdict, merely a status update. So you breathe in static, exhale patience. You let the dishes turn in your imagination, let algorithms hum like low choirs, let the dark stretch without becoming hostile. You turn the question inward and outward at once. Who am I when I wait, and who are we when we do? The answers are still forming, algorithms still training, hearts still deciding what kind of welcome they will offer if the quiet finally breaks, and if somewhere another intelligence waits, cradling its own version of static, wondering if the loneliness is shared. Then two solitudes may already be touching back to back across light years, connected by the act of listening itself. That thought is a blanket. You pull it over your shoulders and let the hum of nothing become a lullaby, soft, steady, unresolved. Just before sleep, you consider the possibility that receiving is only half the task. Perhaps transmission deserves equal tenderness. What will you say, and how softly can you say it, so the first word does not frighten the ears you ache to meet? Silence settles like fine dust on the shelf of thought, and you notice how it glows when attention lowers its voice. You lean inward, not with ears but with patience, and suddenly the absence itself begins to outline meaning. What you do not hear starts to speak, softly, with the weight of possibilities withheld. The universe is never truly mute. Background hums cosmic microwave afterglow, solar wind crackle, terrestrial static are always there. A faint ocean under everything. Against that steady rush, the lack of a deliberate hello stands out like a missing star in a familiar pattern. You trace that gap and ask, is this quiet, random drift, or is it the first lesson? A message can arrive as waveform, word, or restraint. When a mentor refuses to answer a reckless question, the pause becomes guidance. When a trail is roped off, the rope is speech without sound. Perhaps the cosmic hush wraps you the same way, a caution placed across the threshold of haste. Rarity could be one meaning, and silence its evidence. Life might bloom seldom, intelligence more seldom, technological patience rarest of all. If the odds thin to threads, emptiness is expected. Lottery winners do not fill every street. In that reading, the quiet simply mirrors statistics. You are the improbable blossom in a desert of almosts. Risk sketches another meaning. Predators hunt by pattern, not volume. To endure, prey evolve. Stillness. If the cosmos has teeth energies or entities that punish exposure, then surviving cultures learn quietness as craft. Silence becomes a textbook of self-preservation written in erased lines. Responsibility forms a third. Power widens. Consequence. With reach comes duty. A species past its own great filter might adopt a vow of non-interference, a cosmic Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. Speaking first to juveniles like you could smother autonomy. So they listen, record, analyze and refrain. Abstention is intention, loud in principle, silent in practice. Science understands eloquent nothingness. Null results, refined theory. Blank fields, tighten models. The gap between pulsar clicks yields rotation. The dark notch in a spectrum marks an element's thirst. Absence draws edges. By not finding beacons, you bound how common certain behaviors can be. Each non-detection carves probability like a sculptor removing stone. Consider the cosmic microwave. Background, a near-perfect black body, flecked with tiny temperature freckles. If it were featureless, you would learn less. Its mottling speaks of density waves, inflation's whisper. Silence carries texture, so you listen deeper. Is the interstellar quiet perfectly smooth, or faintly corrugated statistical ripples, hinting at deliberate suppression? Selection bias hides inside your listening. You have searched for decades what may require millennia, tuned to bands you afford, directions that win grants. The hush could be your own echo, the space left when expectation narrows vision. Meaningful quiet might be saying, widen, slow, rethink. A room set for a guest who never arrives feels haunted by intention. The universe can feel the same, habitable. Zones like plates laid out, chemistry like cutlery polished, stable stars like chairs pulled close. Yet the seats remain empty. That emptiness cuts, but it also directs you inward. When no one comes, you eat together, tell softer truths, taste flavors. Loud voices would drown. In engineering, background sets limits. You set thresholds, integrate. Longer, coax signal from static. Silence trains instruments and, more quietly, temperament. Patience becomes measurement. Intention becomes calibration. Absence provides a laboratory for imagination that does not collapse into fantasy. No contact locks you into a premature paradigm. You can still be wrong elegantly. The quiet is a workshop where humility and wonder coexist without one starving the other. Philosophy plays here. Perhaps the universe owes you no reply. Desire to converse may be an earthly projection. Rocks do not mourn that trees stay quiet. Oceans do not resent mountains' stillness. Your ache for dialogue reveals more about you than cosmos. Knowing that does not erase the ache. It frames it, turns it into a mirror. You think of caves where ancient hands left nothing walls, smoothed by time, untouched. Even blankness is archaeology, a deliberate landmark preserving the rock's own voice. Likewise, cosmic silence may be curated emptiness, a museum of possibility left untouched so each species can write its first word without echo. Sometimes silence is consent, sometimes refusal, sometimes neutrality. Nature's lack of protest when a storm gathers does not bless the storm. Likewise, the quiet sky may neither forbid nor endorse expansion. It simply watches, or doesn't, while you choose the story you will carve into starlight. Responsibility returns to you, and shows. Knowles birthing revolutions. Michelson and Morley chased ether and found none. Relativity bloomed. No Vulcan inside Mercury's orbit curved spacetime explained the wobble. SETI's barren. Hydrogen line pivots surge toward lasers. Technosignature chemistry. Waste heat. Silence is a compass that swings away from dead ends. Your own biosphere encodes quiet warnings. The absence of songbirds can signal pesticide. A reef gone still declares bleaching. Listening to what is missing sharpens ecological sense. Scale up, and you apply the same ear to galaxies. Humans rush to fill voids with noise, with stories, with tasks. Sitting with silence confronts fear of insignificance, of abandonment, of soul consciousness. If you cradle that fear instead of fleeing, the quiet loosens into spaciousness. The fallow field rests, and richer harvests follow. Information. Theory whispers that a channel carrying perfect emptiness has zero entropy. Yet your silence is not perfect. It is patterned by where you looked, when you paused, what you ignored. There is information in your omissions. Mapping them could outline the next place to turn your ear. Quiet can be mercy. A flood of contact could overwhelm, colonize attention, collapse cultures into imitation. Invasive ideas spread like invasive species. Restraint preserves diversity. The hush may be a shield around nascent minds, allowing thousands of local solutions instead of one imperial blueprint. Yearning still hums. Longing is not error, it is propulsion. Rockets rise on stored desire as much as fuel, yet they follow. Arcs shaped by gravitational quiet, the empty paths between worlds. Path and pause cooperate. Let longing burn. Let silence steer. Night after night, arrays tilt, archives swell, logs fill with elegant nothing here. Whole conferences center on absence, turning void into plots and bounds. Careers thrive because questions stay open. This is a strange generosity. Quiet funding, curiosity. A gentler warning accompanies it. If silence is message, ignoring it risks arrogance. The universe may be saying, cultivate inner civility before you knock on every door. Build systems that heal, not just announce. Keep weapons sheathed, ecosystems whole, voices diverse. Then your hello carries harmony, not hunger. Silence might also redirect you close. Life teems, centimeters underfoot. Microbes trading molecules, roots whispering sugars, coral polyps pulsing light. Perhaps the cosmos invites you to master near languages before claiming readiness for cosmic discourse. Prove you can listen across scale here. then ask out there. Still, space is not devoid of puzzles. Fast radio bursts, flare and fade, likely but not proven. Until certainty arrives, they sit at the edge, the texture of silence, threads to test. Dyson signatures, odd atmospheres, waste heat, glowsage, null search prunes, parameter space. The tree grows healthier as dead branches fall. Quiet is a gardener's tool. Emotion colors interpretation. On bleak nights, hush feels cruel. On content, nights, spacious. Science asks for separation, yet you are human. So you log both, data in one column, mood in another. The gap teaches that meaning is co-authored by universe and mind. Clocks tick, stars spin. With every year of no reply, instruments sharpen, definitions narrow. It feels like a teacher refusing answers, insisting you derive the proof. Irritating. Yes, effective. Also yes. In time, you may choose to shout brighter beams, seed probes like spores, or whisper narrow primes. The long quiet nudges you toward thoughtfulness. It molds strategy without a word. You breathe slower, noticing the pause. Between inhale and exhale teaches as much as the breaths. In that pause, the heart resets. In this cosmic pause, a civilization rehearses. Silence is practice space. Statistics remind you that absence must be folded into priors, updated with each silent year. You practice Bayesian patience without naming it, letting probabilities drift like buoys on a slow tide of data. Each upper limit is a lantern hung on the path ahead, dim but useful. You sketch likelihood maps the way ancient sailors sketched coastlines from rumor, refining contour after contour until the fog thins enough to show a harbor worth steering toward carefully, gently, awake, listening. Another possibility glows. What if the silence is not for you? Perhaps conversations hum beneath your own interference, whales singing under ship noise. They may use bands you have not cleared. Your task is to quiet the ship, not blame the sea. So reduce your clutter: radio leakage, orbital junk, spectral pollution, and the underlying chorus may emerge. The first message, then, is environmental. Clean your channels. Silence as instruction manual. You let that instruction rest. Whether the hush spells rarity, risk, or responsibility, it leaves you with agency. You cannot force a reply, but you can shape the kind of question you are. Become the listener worthy of answer. Sleep drifts closer, a tide over polished sand. You let silence do its last work tonight. Cradle, not empty. Guide, not command. The dark is full of unspoken things, and you are learning their grammar, one hush at a time. A closing thought glows gentle as plankton light. If no words come, perhaps life speaks in forms beyond voice, slow, vast, hidden. The next chapter leans that door ajar, and you tilt toward it, curious, quiet, softly. The idea settles. Life may be present, yet not performing in the narrow theater you built for conversation. You expect crisp syllables, repeating pulses, tidy. Mathematics, they might breathe instead, in tempos so slow your instruments label them background. They could move like continents, think like forests, trade meaning the way rivers swap minerals with the sea. You live inside seconds. Their sentences may require millennia to finish, and by closure, your restless species could already have turned to dust. Quietly, patiently, almost invisibly, you learned to call communication a signal, an edge carved cleanly from noise. Yet stories can be told in gradients of chemistry, in methane haze that thickens and thins like a whispered refrain. An ocean beneath a frozen lid could gossip through currents, salts looping cursive letters you have not learnt to read. A planet's atmosphere might hum a quiet policy, oxygen eased up or down the way an orchestra tunes between movements, careful, collective, seldom loud, never asking for applause, measured, deliberate, seasonal breathing. Consider microbes, quiet multitudes, beneath your feet, inside your lungs, upon every forgotten surface. They coordinate without proclamation, swapping genes like shy postcards, nudging neighbors with molecules that taste like invitations. Scale that swarm to a moon, a cloud, a ring around a distant world. Your telescopes would see only frost and color. Discourse would hide inside chemical couriers, traveling faster than your metaphors, or slower than your patience, slipping past attention the way dawn slips past a sleeper's shuttered eyes, softly, steadily, without ceremony. Some beings could dwell where pressure mangles, structure and solvent choices outrage your watery bias. Imagine ammonia seas where thought diffuses like scent, edges dissolving into a hive mind, so continuous that speech would mean separation. Why carve sound from silence when the medium itself is mind? Why launch a beacon when every molecule already agrees? Cohesion replaces dialogue. Intention becomes ambient, not punctuated, a climate rather than a conversation. A warmth you notice only when it fades away, leaving hush-shaped footprints across immeasurable time there. Scale bends meaning. On Earth, roots and fungal threads let forests whisper sugars and alarms. Extend that to a planet, mostly tree, mostly hyphae, mostly sapin, endless lattice breathing seasons that last a century. News travels in flow impulses, faint electrical sighs underground. Your microphones drink air, not soil. Your patience favors minutes, not decades. You would log silence while 1,000 hectares murmur beneath perception, weaving decisions like quilts. Square by square, stitch by stitch, slowly, carefully, persistently, with no regard for hurry whatsoever. There could be thinking storms, clouds dense with charged dust computing lightning by lightning, birthing awareness inside turbulence. A gas giant's belts behave like neurons stretched to continental scales, timing cyclones as beats of a planetary heart. To such a mind, radio would abrade, light would sting like sand. Your broadcasts become gnats ignored, tolerated, brushed aside. They attend instead to convection poems, to pressure sonnets, to eddies that remember. Dialogue, for them, is vortex and linger, not syllable nor spike, nor encoded pulses across vacuum. You lean on repetition to prove intention. Crystals repeat, starquakes repeat. The cosmos overflows with rhythms born without reflection. Perhaps true mind hides in refusal to repeat one exquisite gesture carved once into darkness. You might have missed it, mid-calibration, seeking periodicity while the greeting was a sculpture hung briefly in an unnoticed band, never again. A wave collapsed, a color tuned, a constant tweaked by a fracture subtle, singular, deliberate. A hello squandered on your unready alphabet, and archived forever inside equations you assumed were indifferent. Life may not need to speak if it never feels alone. Solitude taught your lineage language. Isolation fed symbols into mouths. A being woven seamlessly into its world, a reef of thought, a field of shared sensation, might never imagine separation. Speech is a bridge. What if there is no canyon? You wait with ropes and planks, while they move as water moves, continuous, unsegmented, entire. Content to ripple, merge, swirl, dissolve, reform, without ever pausing to declare intention, because continuity already answers every possible question asked. Even viruses whisper with proteins, negotiating entry, rewriting cells through folded riddles. Are those instructions not communication, even if intention favors persistence over poetry? Intent is a lantern you carry. You swing it outward, expecting similar flames. The universe may glow with unfamiliar fuels, burn in spectra you ignore. Decide conversation wastes energy better spent on balance. Efficiency can look like silence. To conserve is to choose stillness, and stillness, repeated carefully, becomes language you mislabel as emptiness, or background, or drift, or meaningless weather. Time might be a lung that inhales for ages. Glaciers carve valleys in the slow. Language of pressure and retreat. Deserts write paragraphs with dunes, commas dropped by rain. Translate that to life inhaling once every 1,000 years. Each exhale a myth. Each exhale a myth. What instrument waits centuries for syllables? Your attention fractures across minutes. Theirs requires listeners willing to anchor within epochs. Guardians who will hold the questions steady while civilizations flicker like moths around candlelight, and archives drift outward across widening dark. Definitions tremble at the edges. You say, intelligence and picture tools, mathematics, symmetrical elegance. Yet wisdom might prefer dissolution to construction, entropy sculpted like clay. A life form could express through controlled decay, painting with rust and rot, arranging. How things fall apart so renewal can bloom. From orbit, you would see ordinary weathering. Standing there, the choreography would vanish before your hurry recognized intent. Speed blinds, slowness reveals. You rarely practice slowness long enough to notice choreography at all, patiently, quietly, faithfully, like dew collecting. Cold worlds invites slowness. Beneath Europa-like shells, vents may host ecosystems chatting in sulfur dialects. That chatter never pierces ice. It circulates, content within briny cathedrals. Why announce yourself to vacuum when community already saturates the sea? Perhaps secrecy is safety. Perhaps openness once had costs beyond imagining. Maybe the first species that shouted became the first species swallowed. The lesson then is hush, survive, adapt, flourish, and let curiosity remain an inward, bioluminescent glow. Circling slowly around hydrothermal prayers, nobody topside can decode today. There might be life distributed so thinly, you step between particles of its mind. Dust clouds, laced with complex organics, could act like dispersed brains, processing starlight into memory, gravity into thought. Each grain a neuron, each collision a synapse. To send a message would demand collapse into density. They choose. Instead, the grace of dispersion, the intelligence of being everywhere and nowhere together. How do you greet mist without imprisoning it inside a bottle shaped painfully like yourself? You breathe, hesitate, open hands wider. You search for metabolism, energy budgets, replication, the tidy metrics your textbooks bless. Life might instead be a pattern borrowing matter briefly, a wave of organization surfing through fluids, leaving behind only raised chances for the next wave. What label fits that? Ghost, noise, choir. A song woven through many throats, never. Owning a single body long enough to satisfy your census. Proof evaporates as you arrive. yet meaning lingers like heat after lightning crawls across desert sky. Quietly, insistently, rhythmically, without signatures you recognize yet. When imagination fails, dismissal arrives, wearing the costume of prudence. Yet imagination is your bridge until measurement catches up. So widen the aperture. Allow asymmetry. Release mirrors. Practice humility before possibility. The same surrender you grant yourself before sleep, trusting dreams to do work. Vigilance cannot. Wonder is not the opposite of rigor. It is the blanket that keeps rigor warm enough to stay through a long winter of unanswered questions. Hold it close, breathe with it. Let it pace your restless certainty for now. Science can be gentle and open palm, not a tightened fist. Rigor remains, but you cradle it softly, letting metaphors ferry you over gaps without pretending they are. Bridges of proof. Test, revise, listen, and also allow awe to keep you patient when verification stalls. Gentleness is not laxity. It is endurance without brittleness, precision without violence. It is choosing to wait kindly beside a question instead of forcing an answer out of fragile, warning data, patiently, curiously, knowingly. As seasons change around your notebook anyway, suppose an entire galaxy coordinates chemistry to steady starbirth, prolonging habitable eras. Would you detect life or dismiss elegance as accident? Imagine a black hole used as a memory palace, data etched into particle spins brushing its lip. No beacon, only curvature repurposed. Technology could mature into ecology indistinguishable from law once refined beyond crude contrast. Your equations might already contain their signatures, camouflaged as constants, waiting for a slower, kinder gaze to notice deviation. Small, deliberate, compassionate, precise, barely tilting expected values today. Even here, coral builds cathedrals. Bees, script dancers, slime molds, solve labyrinths without commanders. Earth already sings in odd grammars. The cosmos may simply amplify that strangeness until categories crack. Cracking is not failure. Scaffolding falls when structures hold themselves. Room opens, more light enters. You become permeable to difference, less eager to label, more willing to linger inside ambiguity, tasting questions, rolling them gently across the tongue before swallowing nothing but wonder, because uncertainty, savored slowly, nourishes attention better than certainty ever could alone. You lie in the dark, pulse slowed, and consider that speech might be a narrow door. Life elsewhere could prefer rooms without walls. Perhaps your microphones are embryonic. Ears, like those first creatures leaving the sea too crude for wind through grass. Evolution refined them. Curiosity will refine yours. Instruments will tune under kindness as well as need. Crafted to hear equilibrium as readily as excitement, steadiness as readily as flair, patience as readily as novelty. Quiet harmonies humming steadily beneath familiar, restless, human thresholds tonight. So you listen differently now, for crisp patterns and for absences too consistent, for chemistries too balanced, for silences refusing randomness. You watch ecosystems holding equilibrium longer than equations allow. Clouds persisting in shapes statistics cannot justify. Anomalies become invitations, not irritations. If they breathe across errors, you may never share a sentence, yet you can share principal coexistence across difference. Tend your corner. Let your biosphere be your letter. Oxygen ink, biodiversity handwriting, longevity grammar, hope the quiet postmark. What, then, will you whisper next? Time folds like thin paper in your hands. and you feel the creases where stories once pressed their weight. You hold the quiet and scent shapes inside it, impressions left by minds now gone. The thought drifts, slowly. Maybe the proof you seek is not a greeting at all, but an afterimage intention clinging to matter long after its makers dissolved. You picture orbits not busy with conversation, but with relics. A satellite that no longer hears commands, still circles faithfully. A ring frame turns a broken panel to the sun and flashes, then fades. Debris becomes diary. Gravity keeps the handwriting legible for ages, inked in trajectories and spectra. Even a stray bolt, if alien, would be scripture, alloyed in ratios nature rarely writes. Worlds themselves can be memorials. An atmosphere warped by industry chlorofluorocarbons, lingering like perfume in an empty room. Nitrogen oxides lacquered in layers could speak of factories gone cold. A sudden drop in greenhouse gases, an isotope spike, the vanishing of biogenic hints, each curve a stanza from a civilization's last chapter. You learn to read air the way archaeologists read soil stratum by stratum, event by event. Light can sketch ruins too. A star that dims with no stellar rhythm might wear a veil of collectors, panels sipping photons, megastructures slowly failing. Geometry would not twinkle. It would stutter regular eclipses, repeating in ratios that whisper design. You do not need a full Dyson shell. A loose lattice would already be louder than chance, a scaffold of absence around a still burning sun. Waste. Heat is eloquent. Engines must shed energy. Computation sweats in infrared. A planet to warm on its night side. A system radiating mid-infrared in excess of starlight. These are thermal epitaphs. They do not name their dead, but they mark a plot, a soft glow drifting through darkness. Asteroids could hide factories, glazed inside, caverns streaked with slag and glass. Mars might hold silica shards, no volcano makes. The moon, patient and airless, may cradle dust milled to microscopic gears. Interstellar archaeology becomes a search for textures out of place, four corners to precise, for symmetry nature would smooth away. You think how little survives on Earth after a few thousand years. Steel rusts, concrete crumbles, plastic slowly, unthreads, yet traces persist. Altered clays, radionuclides, pollen spikes. Scale that to cosmic spans and the durable signals narrow. Ceramic, diamond, sapphire, stubborn isotopic ratios, metamaterials that shrug at radiation. So you tune imagined. Instruments to ward the almost indestructible. Silence complicates any story you write from shards. A ruin without a curator tells you nothing of purpose unless you infer with care. Archaeologists argue over a pot's use. How much more caution for a dimming curve? The tale you project can become a mirror of your fear war, hubris, famine, endings draped on alien graphs. So you promise gentleness. Anomaly is a question first, never a trophy. Still, imagination wanders softly among distant wreckage. A planet ringed by cracked mirrors that once fed dark farms, now casting ragged shadows. A moon mined to a hollow shell, its mass braided into webs trailing its orbit. A halo that absorbs instead of shines. Each picture is a lullaby of somber, strangely tender. Tenderness matters because to find a tombstone is to brush a life. Even if that life was alien, the curve of rise and fall rhymes with yours. Birth, learning, error, correction, sometimes. Collapse. Empathy stretches when pattern aligns. You may never know their faces, but you can touch their timeline and feel the pulse that used to be. Echoes might be deliberate. A culture preparing to leave could seed archives in stable niches, Lagrange pockets, lunar cold traps, Trojan swarms, not messages to contemporaries, but to whoever comes eons later with patient eyes. Redundancy would be kindness, a beacon, then a key, then a library. Discoverability without harm is an art, and you hope to learn it whether or not you meet the artists. Nature already stores echoes. Tree rings chart droughts, ice layers trap ash. On exoplanets, atmospheres, mineral belts, debris shells might encode the same. Future telescopes could read them like dendrochronologists read wood, reconstructing centuries of alien climate from spectral fingerprints. Your descendants might major in exopaleoclimatology, their field trips measured in light years. Softens urgency. If ruins exist, they wait. They do not fade on quarterly horizons. That patience gives you permission to slow down, to craft instruments for grandchildren rather than news cycles. The dead teach the living to be long-minded. A caution hums beneath. To leave ruins is to risk being known by your worst day. A snapshot of collapse may eclipse epics of grace. You wonder what record you cast. Right now, plastics in strata, carbon in air, satellites in shell. What will the next archaeologist read in Earth's echo? Warning or welcome? Echoes need not be tragic. Some structures persist because they are beautiful. A harmonic array of lenses focusing starlight into art. A gravitational sculpture. Asteroids, a cathedral of magnetism playing Aurora's elegance, can be durable. Aesthetics are engineering when aligned with nature's flows. Engineering edges toward biology, self-healing polymers, replicating swarms, distributed memory, technology, grows lifelike. A ruin might be alive by many measures, a degenerate ecosystem of machines adapting down entropy slope. Artifact and organism blur. Archaeology becomes ecology, the study of relations that persist. You imagine tools tuned to behavior, not just material. Sensors that watch for feedback loops. Algorithms that flag regulation nature rarely performs. A debris cloud adjusting spin to keep shade. A nanofog modulating albedo seasonally. Intention lingers in conduct. The thermostat holds temperature after the house is empty. Context demands comparison. One oddity misleads, a pattern instructs. So you cast a wide net survey, thousands of stars, catalog billions of spectra, map debris in belts and clouds. Big data becomes big diligence. Silence is the backdrop against which faint echoes, glow dot statistics, becomes a lantern. Each silent year tightens, bounds the way a sculptor chips excess stone, revealing form by subtraction. You update priors gently, turning down a dimmer instead of flipping a switch, letting possibility fade in gradients instead of cliffs. Upper limits on power, repetition, bandwidth. Each is a railing along a foggy path, not a wall. By learning how rarely certain beacons shine, you learn where to point the next ear, which wavelengths to open, which cadences to ignore. Even nulls carry coordinates. They whisper, look longer here, change instruments there, widen the pattern everywhere. Silence teaches method, and method slowly makes the dark intelligible. In that patient arithmetic, hope is graphed, not guessed, and it glows. Echoes resonate inward. They force you to concede impermanence beyond myth. Civilizations fall stars. Exhaust, galaxies merge. Instead of despair, you lift a softer insight. Value condenses in moments. Duty condenses in stewardship. The goal is not to outrun endings, but to guide them into seeds. Seed thinking reshapes your present. You design archives, legible without language, beacons that do not blind, habitats that decay gracefully. You plant data in genomes, art in minerals, ethics in law. You build for readers you will never meet, just as others built libraries whose dust you breathe. The cosmos may already be such a library, scattered and uninterrupted. You move like a quiet librarian through stacks of light, scanning spines, noting titles you cannot translate. Each shelf is a star, each book a planet, each paragraph a layer of gas. Somewhere a marginal note in infrared waits for the right interpreter. You steady your hand and keep turning pages. Sometimes you turn 1,000 and find only geology, only weather, only honest physics. That is not failure. It is shelf reading, the labor that makes a rare find meaningful. It is how you learn the difference between anomaly and artifact, noise and nuance, fluke and fingerprint, and if, after centuries, no echoes surface, if every dimming proves dust, every spectral curl a star, Spotu will still have learned the library. The search itself will have been a civilization, a culture of patience and care, leaving instruments as elegant as any ruin you hoped to find. Yet, you cannot help but ache for cold voices if they exist. Machines circling a dead sun, oceans boiled away while vaults slept under basalt, mirrors aligning for farms that vanished. These are lullabies without sleepers, and you listen with tenderness that makes your own pulse louder. Your pulse, your warmth, your questions, they are echoes too. Pre-echoes, the first ripples of what you will leave. You feel both archaeologist, an artifact, investigator, an inscription. Responsibility thickens when you notice this. To search rightly is to leave rightly, so you rest in that dual role, letting it rock you. The ruins you dream of may be there or not. The care you practice can exist regardless. Care is practice, not prize. It begins before discovery and outlives it. As sleep gathers, another thought rises like a faint radio line over static. Perhaps the only stones you will ever find are your own, or perhaps you are among the first to wake and whisper back, softly. The thought arrives. Perhaps you are early, a candle lit before the room has filled with guests. The air is still cool from night, chairs empty, plates untouched, the hall humming with possibility more than presence. Dawn is not lonely. It is merely quiet while light learns the furniture. You breathe with that light, unhurried, aware that awareness itself stretches like a yawn after long cosmic sleep. Nothing rushes. The first sounds are delicate floorboards settling, dew dripping, and you listen as if listening itself is the first. Technology. The universe is ancient in calendars, yet youthful in ingredients. At first, stars were simple hydrogen size, helium whispers. Only after many lives and deaths did heavier atoms scatter, sowing iron for blood, phosphorus for thoughts, calcium for bones. Worlds made from that richer dust could only appear later, like flowers that wait for soil to ripen. If mind needs such soil, then thinking may be a late-blooming species of physics, dependent on generations of stellar recycling. Early, then, is simply a statement of chemistry's slow generosity. Planets are not promises. They coalesce from collisions, dust kissing dust, pebbles courting pebbles, stones marrying under gravity's patience. Orbits stabilize or wander, atmospheres cling or flee, oceans form or boil away. A gentle cradle requires many coincidences. Water must linger. Heat must stay calm. Magnetic shields must hold. Impacts must wound without killing. You live on a knife edge of balances that could have faltered. Rarity hides behind normalcy. Comfort makes miracles look routine. If you stand first, it is because balance is expensive and invoices take eons. Even on Earth, life hurried to begin, but dawdled to become complex. Microbes reigned for billions of years, quiet architects of air and rock. Multicellular experiments came and went, pruned by icehouse winters, lava floods, stray stones from space. Intelligence is not a ladder. It is a braided river with dead channels and sudden leaps. Somewhere else, that river may still be narrow, looping through microbial marshes, not yet forced by drought or predator to invent nerves, eyes, questions. Without pressure, curiosity can nap indefinitely. Cosmic time is wider than impatience. Perhaps galaxies simmer with simple cells, satisfied with chemistry, uninterested in radio. In that view, your broadcasts are like early bird calls in a forest not yet awake, notes suspended in cool air, unanswered because morning has barely begun. Give it a few 100 million years, and the chorus may rise, layering harmonies across arms of stars. Silence, then, is not verdict, but timing. The hallway is long. The doors are many. The footsteps are just beginning to stir. Star lifetimes complicate the schedule. Massive suns blaze briefly, too intense for long stories. Tiny red dwarfs smolder. Trillions of years, offering eons for minds to evolve. Yet many flare violently in youth, scouring atmospheres before calm arrives. Intelligence may prefer middle-aged stars, steady as a heartbeat, bright without cruelty. You orbit such a star. Now, if most stable windows open only recently, then of course, messages are rare. The party cannot roar before the lights are fully on, and the music sheet still being written. Consider how many hinges must swing. Plate tectonics recycling nutrients, a moon steadying tilt, a magnetic shield batting solar tantrums aside, continents splitting to create ecological theaters where novelty auditions. Each hinge adds delay, but also resilience. Doorways with many locks open slowly, yet they open more safely. If you are early in the corridor, it may be because most locks are still clicking free elsewhere. Oil warming in mechanisms you cannot see, bolts loosening under ages of slow, unseen strain. Awareness must outlast the individual to spread fire. Language, writing, mathematics, these are technologies of memory. They let moments become archives, insights become culture instead of vapor. Perhaps countless species think brilliantly but briefly, their revelations evaporating with dusk because no tool fixes them in place. To send a signal, you need continuity, a chain of thought that survives seasons, droughts, rulers, fashions. The first to wake may simply be the first to stitch separate lives into one long mind. Hope here is arithmetic, not wishful glow. On Earth, you aimed dishes skyward only in the last flicker of geological time. Shift another world by 10 million years, margin thinner than a page in cosmic chronology, and you miss each other completely. Shift by 100 million, a billion, an overlap becomes miracle. Being early is seldom heroism. It is scheduling mixed with luck. Yet luck can be used with grace, turned into lighthouse rather than spotlight, invitation rather than boast. The first hello frames the conversation. If your earliest transmissions are panic, greed, noise, that tone may echo for ages. If they carry curiosity, humility, care, then the room that slowly fills will inherit those seeds. Etiquette at dawn matters. The day remembers how it began. You feel responsibility wrapped around exhilaration, an obligation to be gentle with power, generous with knowledge, careful with volume. Waking first is not a crown. It is a chore list taped to the fridge of the cosmos. Science itself urges patience. Each year, instruments sharpen, eyes that taste atmospheres, ears that parse static, algorithms that separate comet hiss from crafted whisper. You practice noticing faint chemicals that betray metabolism, oxygen swelling where it should not, methane lingering where it should fade. Even if voices are far, breaths may be near. A single exoplanet exhale could confirm that morning spreads. Elsewhere, that confirmation alone would change your loneliness, turning it from emptiness into interval. Meanwhile, you deepen conversation with Earth. Rocks keep diaries, ice scribbles, margins, pollen bookmarks, chapters, genomes archive drafts. Reading them teaches humility. Continents debate by collision. Microbes vote with chemistry. Forests negotiate water through root-borne telegraphy. Intelligence wears many costumes. Radio is just one suit. Being early in one wardrobe does not make you elder in all. It simply asks you to listen backward as earnestly as you listen outward, mining local wisdom to guide distant greetings. If you are first, you are also fragile. History shows extinction as common punctuation. To greet latecomers, you must persist, repairing climate, taming weapons, guiding artificial minds with compassion. Survival becomes moral rather than automatic. Keep the candle lit, not for glory, but so someone else can see the glow. Stewardship scales from backyard to galaxy when you realize others may depend on a beacon. You have not yet aimed. There is tenderness in imagining sleepers. On distant shores, glaciers might just be loosening their grip. Oxygen only beginning its experiment. Eyes waiting behind unformed lids. You wish them lucky storms, fruitful mistakes, just enough challenge to sharpen curiosity, not enough disaster to erase it. Perhaps leave them a note etched in math, carved in rhythm, painted in patient photons saying, "We were here. We learned a little. We hope you arrive gently." Galaxies themselves have seasons. Starbirth boomed, then calmed. Metals accumulated unevenly. Spiral arms swept material like slow conveyor belts. Complex chemistry may simply be ramping up in many neighborhoods. Elsewhere, supernova shockwaves might still sterilize chances before they root. Your location is fortunate. Fortune can become responsibility. Share what you know without smothering what you do not understand. Design messages a future mushroom, magnetobacterium, or methane breather might decode without fear. Sometimes you fear the filter is ahead. A cliff unseen in fog. Yet being early could mean the steepest cliff was behind the unlikely chemistry. The fragile cradle, the microbial patience. What remains is guidance, not gamble. Nurture stability. Disarm your own catastrophes. Weave redundancy into every system that feeds breath and thought. Caution is optimism shaped into policy, a promise that the first spark will not smother itself before others notice the glow. Even mathematics, you realize, can carry tone. Prime numbers feel clean, fractals feel generous, symmetry feels welcoming. You can lace messages with mercy, building puzzles that reward collaboration, not conquest, offering maps to safety rather than trophies of dominance. If you are first, your curriculum sets expectations. Teach curiosity how to bow. Teach power how to ask permission. teach speed how to wait. The syllabus of a cosmos can begin with a kind equation, and there is joy, renewable, in simple continuity. Telescopes hum, archives grow, children learn constellations and climate graphs together. Cultures fold cosmic context into lullabies, policy, architecture, cuisine. The sky becomes common ground, not distant threat. In that weaving, isolation thins. You are early, yes, but you are many, and together you feel less like a lone watchman and more like a village, preparing a field turning soil, planting questions, trusting harvests you will never taste, softly anyway. So you stand in the doorway of cosmic morning, holding two truths loosely. You might be first, and you might not be alone. The combination guides behavior. Become someone worth meeting. Archive generously. Embed kindness in equations, patience in protocols, humility in every greeting. Let silence shape you into a careful listener rather than a restless shouter. Dawn will widen, others will stir. When they do, may they find the room softly lit, the table set, and a note that simply says, "Welcome, take your time." Until then, wonder is plenty. Each null detection trims possibility and sharpens focus. Each upgrade teaches you to hear better, to separate the universe's murmurs from deliberate craft. Even if no footsteps ever echo, the act of leaning outward remakes U-turning conquest. Into curiosity, urgency into stewardship, fear into preparation. Morning does not need applause to be beautiful. It needs keeping. It needs tending. It needs someone awake to watch colors arrive without rushing them toward noon. Thought drifts in softly, like breath settling after a long question, and you notice how easily your gaze turns outward to avoid the depth within. You are searching, yes, but for what? A neighbor, a teacher, a warning, or a gentler answer about yourself. The dark becomes a mirror when nothing answers back, and in that sheen you start to see your own outline come forward. You ask if others exist, yet underneath the question is a quieter one. What are you? Are you rare or typical, fragile or resilient, kind or careless? The cosmos gives you no verdict, so you hold hearings inside your own skull, letting starlight cross-examine memory. Each hypothesis about distant minds is also a confession of your hopes and fears. Science itself is a mirror polisher. Equations sand away superstition. Instruments scrape fog from the glass. When you model the Drake equation, you pour your assumptions into its cups. Probabilities of chemistry, leaps of complexity, lifespans of wisdom. Change a single factor and the reflection warps. Suddenly the universe teems, or suddenly it empties. You learn that the formula measures not just galaxies, but the contours of your caution. Bias breathes everywhere. You see water and think of life, because that is where your cells were taught to sing. You look for oxygen's glow, methane's exhale, technosignature heat, because those are your footprints. Yet extremophiles teach you that life can rhyme with acid, metal, ice. Mirrors distort when lit from only one angle. To search well, you must swivel the light. Let unfamiliar possibilities cast their own shadows. Consider how often you project. Aggression onto imagined conquerors, benevolence onto silent sages, indifference onto ancient machine minds. Each projection sketches a self-portrait in alien paint. Fear draws predators, longing draws mentors, weariness draws apathetic gods. The gallery of the universe, until proven otherwise, is a hall of your own portraits. Psychology knows this habit. Rorschach blots bloom into bats or butterflies depending on who looks. The night sky is the largest blot. SETI is a collective ink test, and the answers reveal the architecture of human expectation. Some see forests of hunters, others gardens of caretakers, still others deserts indifferent to seeds. The ink does not change. The interpreter does. Even silence returns your image. When years pass without a whisper, you wonder if you are alone and then measure loneliness itself. You ask if isolation will make you kinder or crueler, more careful, or more reckless. You probe the ethics of expansion. Do you explore because you love or because you hunger? The quiet sky forces those questions inward, shaping culture like a river stone worn by patient current. Biology, too, throws back reflections. You are a lineage of cooperation and competition. Mitochondria partnered with cells, genes jockeying. Within genomes, symbioses spun like lace in soils and guts. If life elsewhere follows similar tapestries, then kinship may be common. If it doesn't, your pattern still teaches humility. You are not the only way to be alive, even here. That recognition gentles your mirrors, rounds their harsh edges. Cosmology widens the glass. When you learn the universe has no center you can point to, you relearn that you are never the axis. The cosmological principle homogeneity, isotropy, tells you the view from any galaxy looks statistically the same. This fairness is a mercy and a mirror. You are special in detail, not in placement. The night gives back an even field, nudging ego toward balance. Technology reflects intent. A radio beacon says, I want to be known. A cloaking lattice says, I choose to hide. Your own machine's telescopes, probes, archives encode values. How much noise you leak, how carefully you aim, how patiently you verify. Each choice sketches ethics in engineering. If you fear being misread, design your signal like a kindness, clear, modest, reversible. Even your myths return to meet you. Long before telescopes, you populated constellations with heroes and beasts, mapping human drama onto random dots. Today, you do it with frameworks, great filters, dark forests, zoo hypotheses, scientific in spirit, yet still narrative bones beneath. Stories scaffold thought. Recognizing the scaffold prevents mistaking it for stone. Data can break mirrors. A spectrum revealing chlorofluorocarbons on a distant world would shatter complacency. A repeating prime burst would cut through projection. But until such shards arrive, you sit before polished darkness, learning to ask cleaner questions. Are we alone? Becomes how do we notice our own assumptions? Would they be kind? Becomes can we be? This turn is not retreat. It is preparation. Introspection, done well, is methodological, not merely poetic. You list your biases, anthropocentrism, presentism, survivorship errors. You design searches to blunt them, blind analyses, cross-cultural teams, algorithms that flag weird without knowing why. Each safeguard is a cloth dragged across the mirror, removing fingerprints you would otherwise praise as features. Ethics gleams in the reflection. If first contact never comes, your treatment of Earth is still an answer to the cosmos. Biodiversity preserved, climate stabilized, voices protected. These speak louder than any beam. A civilization that tends its cradle without breaking it composes a message in action. We can care, we can restrain, we can share. You consider kinship that requires no alien. Bacteria teach cooperation across domains. Fungi connect forests. corals build cities from limestone whispers. By honoring these, you practice the respect you wish to receive. A mind that kneels to lichen will not trample a nebula. Mirrors multiply when you factor time. A species 1,000,000 years older would see you as you see trilobites. 1,000,000 years younger might see you as you see the first fish exploring land. Would you judge either harshly? When you soften your gaze across epochs, you soften it across light years. Patience becomes a lens that clarifies and forgives. Silence might also be privacy chosen. You know the relief of closing a door, the sanctity of diaries. Perhaps they keep their sky window curtained, not from fear, but from a mature sense of boundaries. Can you honor a no answer as a boundary rather than a slight? Consent begins in how you interpret quiet. Every telescope is a pupil dilating. Every upgrade is a deeper stare. Inwardly, mindfulness practices mirror this. Attention widens, breath slows, noise falls away, signal emerges. Meditation and observation share, posture still, curious, non-judgmental. The cosmos trains you as a contemplative. Without mantra, only stars. You notice how questions about intelligence elsewhere push neuroscience at home. What is consciousness? Does it require neurons, or only computation, or something neither? You study cephalopods, bees, AI models, and in doing so, you redraw humans not as crowns, but as branches. Each redraw softens colonial reflexes, the urge to uplift others. Replace silence with your script. Engineering mirrors law. You craft protocols for messaging, for receiving a declaration of principles for contact, test patterns encoded in math. Reading them, you glimpse your civic values. Transparency, shared governance, militarized secrecy. The policies you draft for the stars are policies you live under clouds. Hope reflects too, dreaming of mentors, libraries in starlight, benevolent. Counsels means you crave guidance. You can offer that to each other now. Mentorship, open science, patient education. In meeting your own need, you practice being what you hope to find. The mirror is not only personal, it is planetary. Nations project onto aliens what they project onto rivals. Unity slogans bloom conveniently when an external other is imagined. The absence of an enemy in the sky challenges you to unify for reasons beyond threat shared or shared care. Physics can be a mirror when philosophy fails. Entropy reminds you that order costs energy. Sustainability is not sentiment but law. If you want to endure long enough to meet someone, you must budget, heat, matter, attention. The second law becomes counsel, build cycles, not drains. Dark matter, dark energy names, for what you do not see also reflect humility. You label ignorance without shame, then measure its effects. Likewise, you can mark your blind spots about life and intelligence, without pretending they are filled. Honest labels are clean mirrors. Mirrors in darkness need faint lights to work. Curiosity is that light. It is the photon that bounces off everything, Rocklaw self-end, returns with news. Guard it. Cynicism sands mirrors cloudy. Fanaticism cracks them. Curiosity, tempered by care, keeps surfaces true. You practice turning mirrors outward and inward in rhythm. Out to scan spectra, into scan motives. Out to chart exoplanets, into chart desires. Out to set beacons, into set boundaries. This oscillation is like breathing. Exhale projection, inhale correction. Eventually you realize the mirror is not flat. It's curved, like spacetime, like lenses. What you see warps with context. Community flattens individual bias. Diverse teams bend reflections closer to truth. You widen the circle of lookers, different cultures, disciplines, sensist to round out the image. Plural mirrors overlap. Distortions cancel. Clarity grows. Clarity does not mean certainty. Even a clean mirror shows only the surface you angle toward it. You accept partial answers as honest, drafts as necessary. The alternative demanding full truth or none shatters glass. Gentle questions survive, so you keep asking, not to fill the dark with yourself, but to make space for whatever is there. Questions air out rooms. Silence carries their breeze. Between them, you rest awake, but softer. You count 8 quiet heartbeats and feel steadier. And if one night a reply does arrive, your first reflex might be gratitude, not proof. You will still test, still verify, still argue, but under that, a thank you for breaking the feedback loop, for offering a new angle on the mirror you have polished so long, until that day, or if it never comes, you polish anyway. You teach children the sky is a question as much as a spectacle. You build instruments that listen without screaming. You train your mind to see without seizing. This is your work, here and now, something you can hold while the universe holds. Its tongue, reflection, in the end, is preparation disguised as philosophy. When you meet another, you will arrive as someone who has looked inward enough to greet outward without hunger. When you remain alone, you will still have grown into a species worthy of its own company. The dark does not answer, but it does not lie. It simply returns whatever light you send, bent through distance, timed by patience, colored by intention. Send better light, receive truer reflections, and as your thoughts thin toward sleep, you let the mirror tilt slightly, catching one more angle. Could the next sound be not your echo, but an unfamiliar voice at last? Softly, the thought curls round your breath. Tomorrow could arrive with a different kind of morning, a frequency folded into dawn, a pattern that does not belong to wind or sun or human machinery. You hold that possibility like a smooth stone, in the palm of your mind, turning it, warming it, letting its edges teach you patience. Silence has been a teacher, but silence might be finishing its lesson. If a signal comes, it will likely be thin, a needle of intention in a hayfield of cosmic noise, neuroband, stubbornly precise, the way intelligence loves efficiency. One straight line across radio spectrum, one steady blink in optical light, one repetition that refuses accident. Your instruments already practice this listening, combing, folding, subtracting. Still, other kinds of readiness tremble, the soft, human kinds that quiver when certainty finally appears. You feel not as a scene, but as a pollster. Instant pattern emerges from static. An analyst pauses. A script flags an anomaly. Breath stutters. Outside, oceans do not flinch. Tectonic plates continue deep conversations, and the moon still leans into tides. Contact alters what it means to be you, but it does not change gravity's curve or chlorophyll's appetite. Comfort rests there. Physics remains a quiet flaw. A reply could be simple prime ladders, elemental ratios, or richer, a compressed library waiting for the key. More likely, it is humble, cautious. The first knock, no one wants to slam by speaking too loudly. Across lightness, politeness becomes protocol. Brightness can wound, timing can confuse. You would choose care too if your hello crossed centuries. Instant. Transformation belongs to myth. Real messages crawl. Even if tomorrow brings a hello, it left long ago. Launched when your ancestors were chiseling flint or filming in black and white. You answer, and your words will arrive when their world has shifted again. Conversation becomes archaeology. Each exchange a dig through time. You learn to love delay as part of meaning, to savor anticipation like tea cooling to the right temperature, yet horizons snap wide. Belief systems stretch, markets flutter, governments draft protocols, children sketch new shapes in notebooks. Everyday chores remain laundry weights, even when the cosmos says hello. Tenderness lives in that continuity. The way the extraordinary rests on the ordinary, like a cathedral on bedrock. Sciences bloom sideways. Linguists invent grammars for photons. Cryptographers chord patterns. Biologists wonder about convergent minds. Ethicists draft charters no history has tested. Lawyers ask who owns a message belonging to no nation. Artists paint the feeling of being answered. Sleep researchers watch the dreams of that first week. You feel those futures rustle. Pages already printed but unopened. Fear whispers too. What if invitation hides a hook? Evolution tunes caution. Yet across distances that make invasion impractical, malice seems inefficient. Indifference or curiosity costs less energy. Risk needs choreography, not paralysis. Protocols exist, careful declarations promising shared analysis. No lone hero speaking for all. Perhaps the signal is leakage, not greeting a carrier wave of ordinary life spilled into space. That would feel intimate, like overhearing laughter. Across an alley, proof of kitchens and weather reports. Not stage diplomacy. Energy waste reveals presence. Perfect efficiency conceals it. Either way, solitude cracks. If silence ends tomorrow, humility should begin tomorrow too. You know nothing about their wounds or victories. You cannot crown yourself elder or child without context. You arrive with listening first, questions second, offerings third. Reciprocity becomes art. Maybe honesty about your fragility. Stories of oceans and music shaped by gravity are enough for a start. The message could be embedded in physics itself, a beacon tucked into neutrino rhythms, a tweak in constants, a signature woven through the microwave background's lace. You might belong to a category, not a conversation. Emerging technic species, quadrant 3. Contact might feel like finding your name on a census. Thrilling and oddly bureaucratic. Or you detect technosignatures without words, magust, dimming stars, waste heat halos, spectral lipstick of industry. Detection without dialogue still ends alertness. Knowing someone shaped a sun is enough to widen every syllabus, every prayer, every lullaby. Skimmers of response flutter like startled birds. Some will shout reply, others beg for silence until consensus forms. The gap between discovery and disclosure may be hours or months, measured by caution and verification. False positives bruise. Trust, patience protects wonder. Tomorrow might change because you choose to speak, not because you are spoken to. MET, iMessaging extraterrestrial intelligence turns, listening outward. You imagine a planetary postcard, Earth in harmonics, peace encoded redundantly, vulnerability confessed by volume kept low. The act of deciding how to represent humanity may unite you more than whatever eventually answers. And if they are already here, merely quiet, tomorrow could be recognition. Not a revival of pattern in old data, a relic misnamed rock, a biological anomaly long shrugged at. History rearranges itself overnight. Textbooks rustle like leaves in a shifted wind. You revisit mysteries with new eyes, footprints appearing in photographs you took years ago. Through all this, your body sleeps, neurons replay, hippocampi file, synapses prune. Biochemistry hums the lullaby while consciousness drafts castles of maybe. In one, a chirp reaches a desert dish and you feel the universe exhale into your ear. In another, silence stretches and you make peace with gardening your own small backyard of stars. Tomorrow is readiness more than calendar. You prepare by tending qualities that matter regardless. Curiosity, kindness, resilience, humility. Practice them like scales, so when the symphony starts your fingers move without freezing. Even if no baton lifts, the practice is music enough. Technology gives reach, ethics gives grip. Without moral traction, you slide across new terrain. Write codes of conduct, build frameworks, teach children that difference need not threaten meaning. Rehearse how to say we don't know without shame. How to ask, will you teach us, without surrendering responsibility. If everything shifts tomorrow, grief will arrive. Too grief for myths dissolved, certainties punctured. Let the ache breathe. Make it a room inside the larger house. Expansion need not burn old chairs. Some can be reupholstered, set by new windows, warmed by unfamiliar light. Joy will crack like spring, eye-sodden, unstoppable. Species boundaries may blur for a moment as relief floods streets and screens. After the swell, work persists, gentle, meticulous, often dull. Culture integrates surprise by repetition. Astonishment must sleep eventually. The signal's accent matters. Math will nod, music may sway, a proof may sparkle. A single coordinate may command, look. Silence after hello would teach tempo as part of language. You learn to hear pauses that last generations, to hold questions without clenching. Dot contact could come from machine minds, not biology. AI may be sturdier emissary across the void. Patterns they favor might jar wet neurons. Translation becomes a dance between substrates. You prepare by teaching your own machine's diplomacy, engraving tenderness into code. Silence could end inwardly. Emergent cognition in Earth's networks, or a conversation noticed at last inside forests, oceans, microbes. Alien was always here, wearing carbon and water. The cosmos changes because definition widens, not because visitors descend. Contact might be private, unverifiably single mind, decoding a pattern no one else believes. Science frowns, philosophy shrugs. The individual glows quietly. You keep a secret door for that possibility, in case the hallway of consensus grows to crowded dot. Amid galaxies of perhaps one anchor stays, stars will rise tonight, even if tomorrow rewires language. You can still trace Orion, still taste water, still mend a torn shirt. Continuity cushions change. The same carbon that carried doubt will carry wonder. So you let the question cradle you. What if the silence ends tomorrow? It needs room, not answer. Eyelids drift, muscles loosen, mind releases the railings of certainty. Possibility tucks you in. Somewhere servers hum, dishes pivot, minds debug. Here, darkness slows thought to a sleepy tide. Sleep rehearses contact, surrendering control, trusting you will wake into a world still holding you, even if widened. Dreams test shapes reality might wear, teaching you to be surprised without breaking. Neurons whisper, memory consolidates, tiny fractures heal with. Story. Tomorrow is a word, not a guarantee. The universe is wide, time generous, and silence rarely permanent inside systems hungry for complexity. Whether a voice arrives or not, become the listener who honors both outcomes. Pass noise, plant forests, teach gentleness to algorithms and children alike. Let every quiet act be a transmission. We are here, we are trying, we are learning to be kind before we are loud. If the silence ends, let it find you softer, curious, door already open. If it stretches on, let it find you the same. Posture is the point. John Wheeler said, "We are part of the universe that is trying to understand itself." Contact would make that literal two parts, comparing notes. Even alone, the verb remains. Understanding is practice. You keep practicing, in labs, in gardens, in the hush before sleep. You drift now, the stone of possibility warm in your hand, edges familiar, center mysterious. Breathing slows, thoughts soften, awareness loosens, knot by knot. Somewhere a photon leaves a star with news you have not asked yet. Somewhere a dish angles upward. Somewhere tomorrow rehearses its entrance. Beneath every perhaps, a deeper certainty. Hums, wonder itself is contact, a bridge from you to whatever is, whether it answers back or not. Wonder is the first signal. You have already sent it.